I'll invite everyone to join me as we say the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of our country. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. By way of introduction, to my far left is Mr. Steve Rollins. He represents the Mattaponi District. To my left is Dr. Carol Horton of Port Royal. I'm Bob Schwartz representing Bowling Green District. To my right is our Vice Chair, who is not present but will be here tonight, Mr. J.D. Young representing Reedy Church. Further right is Mr. George Weber representing Madison, and on the far right is Mr. Richard Williams representing Western Caroline. We have Mr. Craig Pennington, our county planner, Mr. Leon Hughes, the director of planning, Mr. Chris McKenzie, our county attorney, and Mr. Brad Robinson, our zoning administrator, Mr. Jeff Voigt, our IT specialist, keeping us online.
Thank you, Jay.
Commissioners, we have the minutes from our regular meeting held Thursday, September 26, 2024. Have you had a chance to review the minutes? Are there any additions or corrections? Hearing none, is there a motion?
I make a motion that we approve the minutes for September 26, 2024 as submitted.
I'll second.
Motion by Mr. Weaver, seconded by Mr. Williams. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Motion carries. Minutes are approved. Under unfinished business, we have Carmel Church Investments. Before we begin, I would like to make a slight modification to the agenda. Item 1A, I would like to move to 2B, that being the text amendment, to be the last order of business. Item 2A, special exception 02-2024, I would recommend that we move that to item 1B. And special exception 07-2024, we should make item 2A for the reasons of expediency, and putting the text amendment at the end of the order will give us more chance to discuss it, ask questions, and so forth. If there is no objection, we will amend the agenda as such. Any objection?
So 1B is last.
1B will be last. Yes, ma'am. If there being no objection, we will move accordingly. Mr. Pennington, unfinished business. That being Belmont
Mr.
Villas.
Schwartz?
Yes, sir.
You need a motion for the change to the agenda.
Okay.
I move that we change the agenda and move item 1B, text amendment 05-2024 to last on our agenda tonight.
Motion by Dr. Horton, second. Would that be all of the changes as I mentioned?
Did you have another change?
No, I listed item 1A will remain in place.
Correct.
Item 1B will be the special exception 02-2024, Raza Mustag. That would be 1B.
That's 2A. Oh, that moves to 1B.
We're
You're
moving
correct.
it to 1B.
Yeah.
And item 2B would be text amendment 05-2024, with the last item being 2A, the text amendment. I'm sorry, I got that one messed up. Item 2A will be the special exception for Industrial Drive. Am I clear as mud?
Just for the record, because I think online too, it's got different numbering. So maybe I could just say it by the case number.
Yes, sir.
So it sounds like the agenda tonight under this motion is going to start with RZ 03 2024, unfinished business.
Correct.
Carmel Church Investments LLC. Hearings SPX 02 2024, Raza Mustique et al. Then SPX 07 2024, 16388 Industrial Drive. And then the last agenda item will be TXC 05 2024, the M1 District Amendment.
That was my intent.
I thought so. Okay.
That is correct.
Got it. So we've got a motion.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Motion carries.
Let's not do that again, okay?
Pardon?
Said, let's not do that again.
No, that's not fun. All right, Mr. Pennington, any unfinished business?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. First item of unfinished business tonight, RZ 03 2024, Belmont Villas Age Restricted Community. At the September Planning Commission meeting, concerns were raised regarding passive recreation facility for the residents of proposed Belmont Villas subdivision. The applicant has submitted a new GDP that shows a fenced dog park, a walking trail around the stormwater management pond, and a pavilion to allow for the use of the common area. I provided a close-up of the GDP where you can see the walking trail around the pond and the pavilion to the south and the fenced dog park area to the far northeast. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Commissioners, any questions?
So the new paperwork we got tonight, the photos go with the Belmont Villas.
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you.
And this is what we had requested at that time, to be some park areas and passive recreation put in here. So I'm very happy to see this change. Thank you.
So do we know the size of the pavilion?
The applicant's here if you'd like to speak to him.
Okay.
Come on up, Mr. Wilton.
Yes, sir. For the record, my name's Henry Wilton. I'm a little shorter than he is. And I represent Wilton Acquisition. As far as we made the changes. I spoke to Mr. Young today, and I want to go over some comments that he gave me. He's not here yet, but y'all can just discuss those at that point. In addition to the changes that we made, again, the dog part, the pavilion we enlarged. It's 20 by 20. It's open. I put in the packet just a larger. The new plan actually has it on the plan that you see up. That's in your packet. It's down on the right side. It's so small, I blew it up so you could see what it's used for. The pavilion, would be used obviously during the summer. It's got plenty of area around it to put benches and picnic tables in case some of the people have their grandchildren over to visit or something. They can go over there and enjoy it, or again, going into the fall because it's going to have a nice fireplace and everything. You'd be able to go ahead and use it for like a little outing if you wanted to meet some of your friends in the neighborhood over there for a glass of wine or something to that effect. I did talk to Mr. Young about a full clubhouse. This development is rather small for a full clubhouse. And in fact, my parents were in Cedarfield for 15 years, and I was over there a lot. And they were right next door to a clubhouse that the Cedarfield had. And in the 15 years that they lived there, I saw it being used 13 times. So basically the cost of it, especially when you're talking about only 61 units, the cost would be excessive for the people. We're trying to make this somewhat affordable. This is obviously, there are different types of retirement homes that offer different things. Obviously services, as you become maybe disabled and so on, you would go to a Cedarfield or one or the other ones or something. But this is more passive recreation, was what we talked about before. So I really didn't have enough room, and I didn't want to go ahead and put the cost on the people, because right now the HOA will have to cover the interior roads, repairs, and so on. There'll obviously be reserves in there to maintain the houses, the landscaping, the trash pickup, all of that. It's already going to be high enough given just development cost today has gone up. And then we're also putting in Colonel Armstead Road, which will open up the other side of the road for commercial development when that road goes in. But that's an expensive road to put in, and a lot of that development cost has to go into this neighborhood too. So we're trying to make it somewhat affordable, although I don't know if anything's affordable anymore. I think that word's probably overused. So but the approximate size of it is 400 feet, 20 by 20. So another question he had was, what happens if we have a disabled person? What is the size of the garage? It's a large one-car garage. And these, I talked to the builder and I also talked to the engineer. And the actual size of the garage is 18 feet. So a lot of times the people are going to have one car. So they pull in, and if you did have the problem of having to get out of your wheelchair and the mechanism coming down to get out of a van or something, you would have enough room to do it because you've got an 18-foot garage right there. Another question was, what happens if you had to put in ramps? This will be designed for zero entry. There won't be any stairs. So if you are in a wheelchair, you'll be going right into your house, or from your garage right into your home, and there won't be any stairs to deal with. That'll be done during the construction plan approval process, and some of that will come through in the HOAs too. So those are some just answers that Mr. Young, or some questions that Mr. Young brought up, and I think I've answered most of them.
So our concern was that make sure the folks had, somewhere to, if they want to get out the house, to relax. And so the fireplace is on the left. So that area to the right of the fireplaces. And is there going to be is that a ceiling fan in the top?
Yes, sir, it is.
Okay. And how about furniture? They would bring their own.
We'll
Okay.
There'll be furniture and everything. I was just trying to get a structure. This is just a drawing of, and we'll make it a part of the case.
Okay.
This is what's going to be built there.
Okay.
And of course, we'll put the furniture in.
Okay.
And the HOA will maintain it per usual.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Walton, these are going to be fire pits, I assume, where, you can do your grilling outside and...
Well, it's a fireplace.
Okay.
And then it's got an area where you could go ahead, and if you needed to prepare some little hors d'oeuvres or something, you could go ahead and do that. So,
Bring your cooler and everything else.
and
Yeah.
there's plenty of room around it. Plus, again, the walking paths to go ahead if you're looking at it, be to the left of it, where we've got some, big grass area, again, with the picnic tables and other seating and so on.
Just one question, sir, and like Mr. Young, I'm concerned about ADA as well. From the interior, it would be a zero-level step into.
Yes, sir.
What about from the front porch?
Right. That'd be both ways. It would be, it's going to be, again, it'll be in the construction documents, and they'll go through the process here at the county and they'll review it. But this will be zero entry is what they call it. And that's where I checked with my engineer. And it'll be graded appropriately because none of the builders do not want any stairs to deal with, and they certainly don't want to be putting any ramps. So from day one, you can go ahead and take your wheelchair in if that's, if you have that problem.
All right, so from the front door, there's not going to be a threshold that they would have?
No, because again, they want to be able to go ahead and run the wheelchair right through there. And I've developed these before. They just go right in.
Yeah. There's one in particular that in King William that I'm familiar with. I have had friends that lived there, and they also had the same thing from the garage as well as from the front door. It was a zero level. So
Yes.
It does.
And my engineer, I checked with my engineer just to make sure that, yeah, that's exactly the way it's going to be designed.
And I understand Mr. Young's concern about the clubhouse, but I also understand about construction cost and the feasibility of building a permanent structure like a clubhouse. So I understand completely where you come from, and I do appreciate what you have done as of our last request. So thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioners, any other questions? Mr. Weaver?
No, I happen to live in a community just like this, okay? And in fact, it happens to be 62 units to be exact. And I can tell you, as long as you have a pavilion that the people can sit out when the weather is good, okay? And you have a doggy park, that's all we need. We don't need more than that. So I think what you've prepared here and proposed is fine with me. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I had a couple of quick questions.
Yes, ma'am.
Just reminding me, we said 2 bedrooms upstairs and 1 downstairs?
There'll be a bedroom and a bath upstairs, but 2 bedrooms, but one's usually used for storage.
Yeah.
The other bedroom upstairs is used if, again, somebody comes to visit for a while.
Yeah.
That would be
And
it.
1 bedroom downstairs?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, you always have to have the 1 bedroom. The main bedroom's downstairs.
Yeah.
And my mother for 5 years never went upstairs.
Yeah.
So,
And there's a bath upstairs, like you
Yes,
said,
ma'am.
and a bathroom
ma'am.
downstairs,
correct.
that a wheelchair could get in downstairs?
Yes, yeah, it has to be ADA acceptable because
wide-
we're designing,
wider doors,
the product's
yeah.
designed for wheelchair
Mm-hmm.
accessibility.
And I'm looking through my packet, can you, what's the size of the fenced dog park again? Do you have that
The
stat on you?
dog park, looks like it's about, if the other slide over here is 200, that would be about 600 by 500 or something like that.
Okay, Thank you.
Looking at the scale, I don't know exactly, but it's about that. See, that's 20. I'm sorry, that's 20 by 20. So it's going to be maybe 200 by 150, something like that. And plenty of room for the dogs to run around and get their things done.
okay.
And so on.
Commissioners, anything further?
Good evening, Chairman. Apologize for my lateness this evening. But I just had a few questions about, we've talked around and I'm just having conversation and concerns about the lack of, shall I say, entertainment for the citizens that will be living here. I certainly appreciate the changes that you all have made. The pavilion is nice. I certainly respect that and appreciate that. However, it's not usable in the colder months. And I think if I were a resident here, I would like to consider something that would be a little more intimate, that I could certainly have my family members. I know parking is very restricted here, and I'm not asking to go that route, but I am looking to see something that the residents won't be so restricted. When they come here, they buy here, some of the amenities that would make this property move and they could feel more at home and excited about being here. They always would now have to go other places. So if they're elderly, I know the older I get, the less I want to travel and drive and different things of that nature. So I would like to have something, I would certainly like to see something or have something that would be beneficial to me for gatherings with my family, for holidays and different events. So again, I would like to see that, and if we don't get an opportunity to see that now before a decision is made, I would, I'd like to see something on paper or plan, some type of plans before it goes to the Board of Supervisors.
Well, as we were talking before, this is what we provided is basically passive recreation. And again, the pavilion is going to be used the majority of the year for outings, again, with some green space to the side also. A community of this size does not offer a clubhouse, nor is a clubhouse going to be used to benefit them or to benefit them on a cost plus basis, because the cost is already high for the development anyway, because it's small. It's 61 lots. This is one option of a retiree. And this is maybe a stepping stone for where he does want to go ahead and get something that has more options, like a full clubhouse, like a Cedar Field, or where they offer, as you get older, or maybe at my age or something, as you get older, this might be the first, but this is the first step in retirement. And it doesn't offer a full clubhouse. It's not large enough to do that. And the cost would be excessive on the individuals that live there. It's already high because, again, we're putting in a main road through there so that it'll allow the commercial part to be developed that I know the county wants. If they wanted more options, again, that would be probably the next place where it would offer, more services, more amenities. But we just got through with the discussion but most of the time, people don't use those clubhouses that much. As I was saying, that I spent 15 years at Cedar Field, right across the street from one with my parents. I wasn't living there, but I'd go visit them. And in the 15 years, I might have seen it 10 or 12 times being used. And this was a larger, obviously full facility for a clubhouse, and you could use it if you wanted to. Was it used? No. And again, it's a little different structure there, obviously, because they had the big house and you could have medical facilities and everything else. But my parents never used that. They were in a little cottage down right across from it. But the pavilions, the research shows that they do use the pavilions. They do go ahead and meet there and they congregate there. And during the cold winter months, usually people want to stay in, especially if it gets colder, as it did last year. They're not really going to go, traipse off to the clubhouse for a meal. So it doesn't really offer that service. It does offer, again, a number of nice passive recreational ideas with the trails and the expanded pavilion area also. But I don't think there's any way you couldn't afford to put a project like that. You couldn't afford a full clubhouse. If you want that, you would go to your next step and you'd be paying probably twice as much.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a question of cost.
Yeah, I certainly respect that and understand what you're saying and what we've talked about. But, I still like to keep apples to apples too, comparing this to a Cedar Field as night and day.
Well,
Cedar Field is
there are a number of steps to your development. This would be the first step, and we're trying to make it an affordable step. Although
appreciate that.
I don't know if it, again, affordability is a different issue nowadays.
That's true, but I certainly appreciate those steps that you're taking towards the affordability. We do need senior housing here in the county, but at the end of the day, who does this benefit? Does it really benefit the citizen? Does it benefit the county?
I think it benefits the people because they want to stay here, and especially the new houses being built in Belmont. If your son or daughter are going to move into one of those homes and they have young children, you want to be close to them. So this is a perfect opportunity to go ahead. Maybe the first 5 years while they're there, you're going to move into one of these units, and you'd be available to them. And they can certainly bring the grandchildren over, and they want to stay here in the area, and that's why they'd be buying at that location anyway. So I think it is a service to the county.
Well, that's a lot of ifs, but do you have any data to support that? And I know it's early in your development, but any marketing materials, statistics, or data that could prove that these individuals would want that, and just that only?
Would want what?
Just to have these amenities which you have proposed?
Well, I'm sure everybody would want everything that they can have. I think that's human nature.
Mhm.
It's a question of cost. Can they afford it? And you know, a regular townhouse today is over $400,000.
Mhm.
And with the obviously with the rates, the benefit is most of these people are selling their houses, so most of it's cash. But still, it's expensive. And again, I don't think that's
Okay.
in the ballpark.
I hate to agree with you 100%, but this is the kind of community I live in. And as most of you know, I'm 80 years old, so I don't go jogging around and things like that. And I like to sit in a pavilion when the weather's good. They do have a little, what do they call it, fire pit that you can go out there. And they start little fires every once in a while, and the old people get together and sit out there. I think that what you're proposing here for this size complex is all that I would want to see. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Anything
Chairman.
further? I'm sorry.
No, sir.
Okay,
Thank you.
anything further, commissioners? Thank you, Mr. Wilton.
Thank you.
And let the minutes reflect that approximately 6:50 p.m., Mr. J.D. Young, our vice chair, joined us. Commissioners, any discussion? I just want to let Mr. Young and everyone else know that I too wish and would like to have seen a clubhouse. But I understand the monetary restrictions on that. It's just not feasible. We could ask for it, but the developer / owner has the right to decline it. And it is what it is. And like Mr. Young and all of us, I too appreciate the changes that the owners have made. So, I wish we could have a clubhouse. However, at this level, I don't see it being possible. This is the Mattaponi District. Would the representative of the Mattaponi District like to make a motion?
And I also want to comment, it's in my district, and I do want what's best for our folks, and I agree with Mr. Young, but I don't know if we can squeeze enough blood out of this turnip to get what we want. In the pavilion, I mean, it's a small piece of what we was requesting, but I think at this point, with the gentleman in front of us here, I think he's tried to work with us the best he could. So I'm making a motion that we approve case number RZ032024 for the Billment subdivision.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for recommendation of approval to the Board of Supervisors. Any further discussion? There being no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay.
Nay.
There being division in the House, we will conduct a roll call vote. Now I just lost my mind. If anyone sees my mind rolling around, please bring it back.
It's down by Carol.
All right, Mr. Williams. How say you, sir?
I'm definitely in favor of it. I'm kind of like with George.
Okay. Aye, an aye is sufficient. Mr. Weaver,
I am definitely in favor of this application.
Mr. Young,
Nay.
I vote aye. Dr. Horton
Aye.
and Mr. Richards.
Rollins.
Rollins, I'm sorry.
Aye.
All right, the Motion carries 5-1. This matter will be forwarded to the Board of Supervisors with a recommendation of approval.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. Have a good evening, sir. Next item would be public hearings. Mr. Pennington, if you would be so kind as to read the protocol for the public hearing, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Purpose of a public hearing is for the Caroline County Planning Commission to listen closely to the verbal expression and position and opinion from the citizens of Caroline County. Public hearings are not question and answer sessions nor debates, and all statements shall be addressed to the chair. When members of the public offer comment, they need to clearly state their name and voting district prior to making their comments. Applicants or representatives of the applicant will be allowed 15 minutes to introduce information regarding the matter advertised for public hearing. All comments are to be pertinent to the issue being considered. Persons speaking at public hearings are respectfully requested to keep comments brief, not to exceed 3 minutes, and to address only those issues pertinent to matters advertised for public hearing. After the public hearing has been closed, the applicant or representatives of the applicant will be allowed 10 minutes to address any issues identified by the public.
Thank you, sir. SPEX 02-2024.
One second, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, I know I messed up your plan, didn't I?
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. Your first public hearing tonight, SPEX 02-2024, MBL Auto Repair. The applicant's requesting approval of a special exception permit for minor auto repair pursuant to Article 9, Section 3.20 of the Caroline County zoning ordinance. The subject property, tax map 26-A30, is a portion of property owned by the applicant that is divided by the Caroline and Spotsylvania County boundary. Property is bounded to the north by the applicant's used car dealership located in Spotsylvania, which is associated with the portion of the property located in Caroline. Bounded to the east by vacant land owned by Woodford Mobile Home Park, and to the south by Bargain Village, which is no longer in operation. Directly across US Route 1, there is one single-family dwelling located in Spotsylvania County. The county boundary shown on the GIS depiction is not an accurate depiction of the county boundary. In 2019, a site plan for a used car dealership was approved on the portion of the property in Spotsylvania County, which showed some of the parking area on the portion of the property in Caroline. After Caroline County contacted the owner of the property regarding this issue, the owner applied for a rezoning of the property from RP to B1 and a special exception permit to rectify the improvements that were already in place via the approved site plan from Spotsylvania. The rezoning and special exception were approved by the Board of Supervisors in 2020, which allowed the parking of 9 vehicles for sale on the portion of the property in Caroline, while the office for the used car dealership was located in Spotsylvania. There was an existing small garage on the property that was allowed as an accessory to the used car dealership, where repair was allowed for vehicles to be sold by the dealership. The county boundary shown on the site plan provided is an accurate survey of the property. Since that time, the small garage was removed and a new structure built to accommodate the allowed accessory use of repairing vehicles to be sold by the dealership. The applicant now desires to open the existing garage as a minor auto repair business for the public and is requesting a special exception in accordance with Article 9, Section 3.20 of the zoning ordinance. There have been no violations of the previously approved special exception to date. No land improvements are planned for the proposed minor auto repair use. The applicant has removed the 9 vehicles that were associated with the dealership and will reuse those 9 parking spaces for the minor auto repair facility. The parcel in Caroline does not contain any road frontage and is landlocked by the parcel located in Spotsylvania County. An approximation of the county boundary is shown in the picture on your screen. The Caroline portion of the property begins approximately 6 to 10 feet behind the existing fence and runs angularly across the property. The existing vehicle sales office located in Spotsylvania is shown on your left, and the approved VDOT entrance for the proposed minor auto repair facility located in Spotsylvania is shown on your right. The comprehensive plan designates this area as rural preservation. The property was rezoned to B1 in 2019 to accommodate a used car dealership. The existing B1 zoning is not consistent with the comprehensive plan. A motor vehicle repair service facility is permitted with special exception permit in the B1 zoning district. The proposed use is consistent with the zoning of the property. Agency comments received would be addressed via permitting should this special exception be approved. VDOT has provided comments since the staff report was composed and is asking for some further information to determine if any entrance improvements would be required or if the existing entrance is sufficient. Staff offers the following conditions for the Planning Commission to consider if there's a recommendation of approval. The two which shall be recorded in the circuit court within 30 days of receipt. No inoperable vehicles shall be stored on the property unless awaiting repair. No vehicles used for parts shall be stored on the property. All parts and/or fluids for repair shall be stored within a fully enclosed structure. All fluids shall be stored and disposed of properly according to all federal, state, and local regulations. All vehicles awaiting repair shall be parked in designated parking space. No more than 9 vehicles may be awaiting repair at one time. This is based on the parking spaces available. And should this special exception be approved, all interior and exterior upgrades to the garage structure required by the Building Department and the Virginia Department of Health shall be permitted, inspected, and approved. And this concludes the staff report, and I'm happy to address any questions that you may have.
Commissioners, any questions at this point?
Now, I would like to see the picture of the 9 parking spots. Can you point them out? So they
The best place to see them is here on this site plan, the original site plan for the property. They had 5 spaces to the right of the existing garage and 4 spaces to the left of the existing garage, highlighted in orange. And so those were the 9 parking spaces that were provided. You look at the physical picture, they would be right there to the left of the building and where this car on the right side of the building would be parked.
Mr. Pennington, you indicated they were going to be 8 feet from the fence line?
No, the county, the
county
Caroline
line.
County portion of the property begins about 8 feet from the fence line. So anything to the right of that line on this picture would be Spotsylvania County. So anything in front of the fence, just behind the fence, or to the right of that red line is Spotsylvania County jurisdiction. Anything to the left of that red line would be Caroline County jurisdiction.
All right, so now the paved surface that we see here with the traffic cones, what lot is that? Where is this perspective coming from?
So in this picture, I was standing just at the edge of the grass line. This would be looking back from the front corner of the garage.
All right, sir. I have nothing further at this time, but
Mr. Pennington, I was looking in here, maybe I overlooked it, but where would the utilities come? Does this building already have utilities?
No, the building does not have utilities. Previously, currently, it's being used as a repair shop for the existing vehicles for the dealership to sell as an accessory use to the used auto dealership. When at the time permitted, the building department said that they did not need a restroom at that time. After the building department commented on this application, they said if they were opening to the public that they would require a bathroom. And so should this get approved, then that would be up to the applicant to determine how he wanted to serve that building. It could be well and septic with a drain field, but there are no Caroline County utilities in this area.
Thank you. Now, would this be a separate, I don't know if this is for you or the applicant, is this a separate business than what's on the Spotsylvania side, or 2 different businesses?
This would be an auto repair. That is correct. What's on Spotsylvania side is strictly a used car dealership.
Thank you.
So then without utilities, this could only be used as a garage, correct?
They will have to put a bathroom in the garage to open for the public. And so to facilitate the bathroom, they will have to do a well and septic. The proffers from the original case, original rezoning case, stated that they could not remove any trees except for the installation of a drain field for well and septic purposes to outfit this building in the future. So they are allowed to do a drain field to accommodate the bathroom in the structure.
So if they want to open this particular building, okay, to the public, then they must have a bathroom.
That is what the building department commented, yes.
Thank you.
So would it be open for the public or is just a private repair?
Currently, it's a private repair for the used car dealership. It's allowed as an accessory to the used car dealership. They do have a permit for the used car dealership in Caroline County as they previously parked cars on our side. And so when they open, what they're requesting is that they can open to the public and you could stop by and have your oil changed.
Okay. Thank you.
Currently, they cannot change other people's oils or plugs or wires or do any repair.
So it would have a waiting area and such?
That's up to the applicant.
Okay, thank you.
Sir, would 1.02 acres accommodate septic and well?
It should. This building and parking lot don't take up that bunch of acreage of this this parcel. It's probably 0.6 to 0.7 acres still open, which is plenty of room to accommodate a drain field.
Okay, and I saw there was no fencing. There's fencing in the front and the left, which I'm assuming that's for the Spotsylvania side.
So
So there's no fencing to the south of the garage and to the east, the back side of the garage. So is that something that would be required?
the fence shown in this picture to the left here is on the Caroline parcel boundary between this and the parcel to the south. The fence on the right side of this picture is the frontage fence on the Spotsylvania County property. I'm not aware if there's a fence on the rear of the property or not.
No, it is.
There is not a requirement that they put up a fence.
And not for the side. So the bargain barn that is now closed, there's nobody's using, so it's not a fence. So I didn't see any fence on that boundary where the bargain barn property.
So if you look, I've got my pointer on the screen. They do have a fence that runs down this property line, at least to this point. I'm not sure how much farther back it goes, but they do have an existing fence on this parcel boundary right there.
All right. I see in the notes about the state government on disposal of fluids. So that's going to be up. We have no control of whether it's in-ground storage of old waste oil above ground, and how would it be? We don't have any say-so with how that would be handled.
So the conditions for the project state that any unused fluids or used fluids that are kept on the property shall be kept inside the enclosed building and not outside in the view for the public. And there's also a condition that states that all fluid to be disposed of shall be disposed of properly according to all federal, state, and local requirements. So if there was an issue where they were disposing of fluid improperly, it'd be a violation of the conditions and we could revoke the special exception permit.
And my last question is, who would police the 9 vehicles parking around that building? How would that be policed?
The planning department would police that. If someone called in a complaint that there was more than 9 vehicles awaiting repair, or if the planning department was on site for an inspection, and there was more than 9 vehicles awaiting repair, then that would be a violation of the conditions, and then there'd be a meeting to discuss the violation.
Okay, thank you.
I have 2 questions, Mr. Pennington, and about the aesthetics. Are there is there verbiage in place for the aesthetics of how this would look? Are there any drawings or plans for?
No, and there's no requirements. They don't have any road frontage along Route 1, so the HCOD requirements do not apply to this property, and there are no specific aesthetic requirements for a minor auto repair. So there's no aesthetics that could be applied to this case.
Thank you.
Required.
And my second question is, has this been perk tested?
No, as far as I'm aware, they have not had a perk test done, but that would be a question for the applicant.
Thank you.
And that was my question too, because I didn't see a comment from the health department. Do we have any regulations concerning how long for auto repair a car can remain in the lot?
We do not, but the condition states that there shall be no inoperable vehicles parked on the site unless awaiting repair. Inoperable vehicle would be a vehicle that does not have tags, insurance, or registration, or inspection sticker, I'm sorry. And so if a car was there on the lot without one of those, it'd be considered an inoperable vehicle. And so we would expect them to have a contract signed with the auto repair that they're sitting there waiting for repair. If the planning commission received a complaint and we went to investigate and there was an inoperable vehicle there and they did not have a contract to repair that vehicle, then it would be a violation of the conditions.
So they have to have updated inspection, license plate, etc.
They would have to have current inspection, license plate, and insurance, or have a contract to be repaired so that they can get inspection,
Okay.
license plate, or insurance.
All right, thank you.
I don't think there's anything further from you at this time, Mr. Pennington.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I don't know if Mr. Judy or Mr. and I don't want to butcher his name. Is it Mustag? Mustag. I would like to hear from the applicant, and certainly Mr. Judy, you may accompany him if you wish. I would like to hear from the applicant as well. Good evening, Mr. Judy. Nice to have you back with us again.
Well, I'm thankful to actually be here. I discovered that there actually are traffic jams in Bowling Green. It took,
You're kidding. We have more than 3 vehicles?
apparently so. It took me 15 minutes to come the 5 miles down.
Well, only
Bowling Green.
because 95 is about a few miles away, 10 miles away. People come over here when they can't get through 95.
Apparently. Okay.
And Mr. Judy, I guess this would be a joint question. The application is for a minor auto repair.
Yes, sir.
And I was just wondering, is your client anticipating doing any engine replacement,
No, sir. That would not be permitted for a minor.
transmission replacement,
No, sir.
rear end replacement,
I'm not sure what you mean by rear end replacement.
rear axle?
No.
Okay. How about timing belts?
Timing belt is pretty much no. It's like we're gonna probably do minor to mean changing spark plugs and use up computer checkup, tune ups, oil change, probably brakes and routers, but nothing something that major.
All right, sir.
Basically, there would not be anything done that requires removal of the major powertrain portions of a
Yes.
vehicle, which would include the engine, the
Yes,
transmission,
sir.
and the rear axle,
All right, sir.
or the front drivetrain and front wheel drive car. They'll just be, as he said, those things that are typical of cars. We talk about tune-ups, which are no longer what they used to be. It's basically replacing spark plugs. It be changing the oil and doing things of that nature. There would be some minor engine repair, but I doubt that it would include something like a timing chain, maybe a water pump or something along those lines. Some of the exterior products that are on the engine that might have to be replaced would be the most significant thing that they would do.
State inspections.
I think there is an intent to have state inspection in the future. They don't have anyone qualified to do that right now, but I believe under the county's ordinance that state inspections would be permitted, yes.
Yeah, and this is something I need to take up, I guess, with our legal as well as planning department, is defining major versus minor.
Yes, sir.
Because I couldn't find any real definition. I see Mr. McKenzie is up.
Yeah, and I'm happy to do that, but I just wanted to clarify that under the rules of the order of procedure, the applicant has 15 minutes to make his presentation. Then we would typically do Q&A, legal and the applicant.
You're absolutely correct, and I jumped right into the queue.
But I wanted to make sure that we had an opportunity.
All right, so, Mr. Judy, if you or your client at this point would care to make a presentation, we're all ears, sir.
I'll be happy to do that if you want
Thank
to
you.
sit down.
Thank you.
Members of the Planning Commission, my name is Steve Judy. I'm an attorney from Fredericksburg. My address is 9301 Bishop's Lane in Fredericksburg, 22407. I represent MBL Auto Incorporated and the owners of that business on their application for this special exception permit for the purpose of a minor auto repair facility. I thank Mr. Pennington for his report, and I won't belabor you with repeating too many of the things in his report. It was very thorough. But I do want you to know that my client will, if this permit is approved, comply with all of the special conditions that were identified in that report. Mr. Pennington gave you some of the background on this property. As you know, I was here before when we asked for the rezoning and the special exception to allow the car sales facility. The biggest problem was that the owner did not recognize when they first purchased the property that it actually was in two different localities. And they had applied for their permits in Spotsylvania County, only to find through Mr. Pennington that, wait a minute, part of the property is in Caroline. So they had to obtain the rezoning in order to place the business as it is now. That building that you see there, 2 years ago, that building was a dilapidated pile of junk, basically, that needed to be removed, and they obtained the necessary permits to take down the old building and put up a new metal building, as you see there. And they have been for the last couple of years operating it as their facility for prepping the cars and doing minor repairs to the cars that they sell at the facility. It's interesting. I asked the owners why they wanted to do this, why they wanted to seek this additional business. And the answer I got was pretty surprising because it wasn't what I expected them to say. Sure, my client admits that having a minor car repair facility open to the public would hopefully provide an additional stream of income for them, and that would be nice. But the main idea for the repair facility and the name that they wish to call it, which is Urgent Auto Care, came about because of more than one instance where people have actually sought out urgent care for their vehicle from my client. A story my client shared with me, and I'll share with you, is an elderly couple that were driving from Connecticut to Florida who got off in 95 looking for a repair facility because the engine light had come on their car. They couldn't find a repair facility, but they found my client's lot, and they pulled in and asked if they might be able to help them. Well, because they have the equipment and the facility there, they were able to do a diagnostic on the system of the car. And lo and behold, they found out that what the problem was, that air pressure in their car, in their tires, was too low. And so they were able to put some air in their tires and let them get back on the road. And the elderly couple was very happy to have received this free service from them. This is not the only time that this has happened. There have been a few occasions where people have pulled off the highway looking for repair, that they've come off at 95 or they're driving up and down Route 1, and they just have a minor issue with their car and they need some help, and they don't know where to go for a mechanic, or they don't really have time to go to the dealer or someone else. They just have a simple issue. And so that sort of is where this whole idea was born out of, was being able to provide a sort of an urgent care system. And, this is very similar to the urgent care medical facilities that we have popping up all over the Fredericksburg area, that, people are tired of going to the emergency room and having to sit for 5 or 6 hours waiting for service. These other places are made available. You don't have to have an appointment. You just pull in and you identify what your issue is. And if it's a serious issue, they'll send you to the hospital. But if it's a minor issue that the doctors or the PAs there can take care of, they'll do it. So this is sort of the same idea that they were looking for at this facility. And with the Kalahari Resort coming online sometime in the next year or so, the amount of traffic that's going to be up and down Route 1 is going to increase significantly, which means the number of people coming out of the area, or who are out of the area coming here, who may experience minor car issues, are going to need a place to go to say, hey, I got some issues with my car. So again, that's the reason for considering this idea and considering the name Urgent Auto Care to allow this to occur. As I said before, the intent is to comply with all the conditions that the planning department has placed on this application, and we will follow through with that. I don't have any additional things to say at this point, but we'll answer any additional questions that you had.
Commissioners, any questions at this time?
So I think someone had asked about to the property being perked for drain field or whatever. Do you know, or the applicant does?
We haven't really got into that because that's really an issue after a special exception would be issued that we would have to deal with the health department. We were only advised of this last week. I tried to call your health department this week, and the lady there is on vacation, so I wasn't able to speak to her. But one thing I did, I talked to Spotsylvania's health department, and what they've indicated is that they would be willing to allow, if we were required to put in a bathroom, they would allow them to tie into the drain field that's on the Spotsylvania side. I don't know exactly where it is, but if all of the conditions are appropriate, they would indicate an allowance for that, which may save my client the trouble of having to put in a new drain field, and also avoid any additional potential for pollution from a drain field. We know that there have been other ideas bannered about that maybe that if they have to have a bathroom there, that they could use a chemical toilet system instead of having to put in a drain field. But one of the questions that I heard earlier was the question of, would there be a waiting area? And also, would the public have access to the building? The intention of my client is that if a person comes in, there's only one entrance, and the entrance is on the Spotsylvania side, that anyone coming in looking for assistance with their vehicle would come to the office that's on the Spotsylvania side, where they have a waiting area with chairs and so forth, and the person would come there. The staff would pick up the car and take it over to the building. So in reality, nobody with the public is going to be in that building. So that raises a question of whether the restroom facility is required or not. But if it is, if it still is required, even though nobody in the public is going to be in that building, we'll work it out and we'll do what's necessary to make it work. Question was asked if there is utilities to this building. And when I was sitting back there listening, first thing that came to mind is whether he was asking if electricity was available for this building. Well, there is. The building is fully electrified. There's a pole just outside the building where the line runs and comes in. So that's not an issue. But as Mr. Pennington said, there are no county utilities, sewer or water available for this building. And there is no sewer or water available for the whole site. So
You can contact the health department now. Yeah, you can get it perked in advance. Or you said you contacted them anyway, I believe.
I called,
Yeah.
and the lady who provided the information, is her name Vicky? Is it? Vicky is not there this week. She's on vacation, and I asked if there was anyone else I could speak to, and they said nope, she's the only one. So
Because that's it's in my district, and that's one thing I'd kind of like to know right now. What is the health department going to say
that's-
about this?
That's all they have said up to this point, that if the exception is approved, then we would have to comply with whatever standards they give us.
Yeah, because I mean, you've got,
But we don't know specifically
yeah,
what
a
they
little
are.
over an acre. We don't know if it's going to perk yet.
I understand. And
Yeah.
as I had said, that we have indication from Spotsylvania that they would be willing to allow the system to be hooked to the existing.
Yeah, but
drain field.
that might not
It might not
comply,
apply.
that might not comply with Caroline's health department. I'm not sure. Mr. Pennington would know more about that.
So drain field easements are allowed. And so if they put a drain field easement on the Spotsylvania portion of the property, then, and the drain field was large enough to accept the tie-in, then the health department would allow the drain field to be in Spotsylvania while the bathroom is in Caroline.
Okay, that's good to know.
Thank you. Okay.
Mr. Judy, the one thing that comes to mind is being a mechanic can be dirty and greasy work. The employees in that building would have nowhere to wash their hands or use the standard hand cleaning products that mechanics use to get grease and oil off of their hands. So I guess the employees would have to run or go from one building to another in order to wash their hands or even use the bathroom.
Well, that is a situation that we're going to have to deal with, and that's why we need to get into discussion with the health department if the permit is going to be approved, and make those determinations of whether there is a actual requirement or whether we have other options that we can do, whether, a wash basin with Gojo or whatever that stuff is would be sufficient, or whether we are required to do something else. I mean, right now, the way the facility is set up, the people who are working in that building have no water. And if they need to, they go over to the other building, which has 3 bathrooms in it. So, there is bathrooms available across the parking lot. But if indeed it's required, we will work through that and do what is necessary.
Okay, thank you, sir. I think your time is up. We'll now open the public hearing. Public hearing for SPEX 02-2024 is now open. Is there anyone wishing to speak regarding this matter? Anyone wishing to speak regarding this matter? Final call, anyone wishing to speak regarding this matter? Seeing no one coming forward, the public hearing is closed. Mr. Pennington,
Yes, sir.
the major thing that sticks in my mind is that this is a separate building or separate business from the auto sales business. It's being conducted in Caroline County, and there are sales attached to this building. People buying oil, tires, whatever products they're buying. And there's a sales tax associated with that. Caroline is being shortchanged if that money, if the proportion of money that would go to the county is instead going to Spotsylvania. I am not against this rezoning or the special exception, but I do have a concern about the lack of getting a little bit of the apple, since Caroline, I think, has done quite a bit to accommodate the applicant and the unique situation that he finds himself in. So I don't know where we go from here with that, but I do submit that, in my opinion, Caroline County is being shortchanged a little bit, and I would like to see some of that come back. I don't know. I'm sure Mr. McKenzie's wheels are spinning. So I'm throwing that out there for some input from legal, from planning department, and so forth.
I believe you would need to ask the applicant about the sales offices and where they're located and how that situation would take place. Because I think that would dictate it depends on what their business practice is as to how that's going to work.
All right, sir, thank you.
Mr. Pennington, before you leave, do you know the size of that building?
I don't know the size of the building off the top of my head, no. I have the permits at the office and I can look at that, but I don't have the size of the building.
Okay. What about things such as, commercial dumpster service and tire disposal? Is there enough room on the property for that?
Yes, if you look at the property, there's an extensive amount of property behind the garage. And so they could facilitate the dumpster and, any type of storage that they needed to behind the building there.
Okay. Yeah, and I don't know, we talked somewhat about this, but I'm looking at the shape of this property. It just appears to me if we had to put a drain field on there, if that area does not perk, there is no other area on this property that you can have a drain field. And then I'm also concerned about the distance of the well to the drain field and to the building.
That is correct. And as I said earlier, drain field easements are allowed.
Sure.
And so if it didn't perk on the Caroline side, then it's as simple as putting an easement on the Spotsylvania drain field to allow repair on the Spotsylvania side from the business operating on the Caroline side. The health department approves drain field easements throughout the year. 3 or 4. I've dealt with 3 or 4 every year. So even if it doesn't perk on the Caroline side, it's still possible for them to hook to the drain field and install a bathroom.
And there is a drain field on Spotsylvania side and not public service.
That is correct. There's no public utilities on the Spotsylvania side.
Thank you.
Anything further, commissioners? Thank you, Mr. Pennington. I'm sorry.
Not for Mr. Pennington, but
Yes, ma'am.
yeah. Do you want me to hold it or comment now? The only thing is I would like to hear from the health department because,
Yes.
I mean, and the concern with the taxes too, I would like maybe someone to look into that and the concern with the drain field. I see this facility maybe expanding in the future. So I really feel like it needs restrooms and I need to hear from the health department.
So the health department did comment on the case and stated that they would need to pull all permits necessary to install drain fields for any type of bathroom facility that was existing, whether it's a easement to the Spotsylvania side, since Spotsylvania Health Department said that would be allowable, or the permitting and installation of a new drain field. We don't usually require perk tests prior to approval or denial. Perk tests can get expensive, and if the case gets denied, then that's money.
But I mean, do we have anything from Spotsylvania written that says that?
I have
Because I mean, they may come back and say, well, the drain field's not large enough on the Spotsylvania side, and that drain field needs expanding.
I don't have anything written from the Spotsylvania Health Department. I have something from the Caroline portion of the Virginia Health Department that states that should this get approved, then they would need to go through all the proper permitting to install the drain field. That was the health department's official comment, is that should this be approved, they would have to go through all the permitting processes for making sure that they have facilities available. And if for some reason it didn't perk, and they couldn't meet the Virginia Health Department requirements, then we would not be able to issue a certificate of occupancy for them to open the garage.
Okay, so we don't have to put that under suggested conditions.
It's already under suggested conditions.
Which number are
I
you?
believe it's condition number 9 that states, should this be approved, the applicant will have to meet all the building department.
You mean
and-
number 8 then,
8,
okay?
I'm sorry, I apologize. Yes, condition number 8 says that they must comply with every Virginia Health Department regulation.
Okay, so that would cover it, you're saying? Okay.
Yes.
And, but we don't know about the taxes yet, right?
I can't speak to their business practices or where their
Okay.
sales office is going to be located.
Yeah, I would be concerned about commingling of businesses. But while you're here, sir, is this building commercial compliant?
The building was permitted and inspected by the building department.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pennington. Mr. McKenzie, and I believe I know the answer, but I'm gonna.
Well, I just want to address a couple things, but I'm also happy to answer any of the earlier questions.
Yes, sir.
On the tax issue, the Commissioner of the Revenue and the Treasurer would be the ultimate people to answer that question for you about, okay, well, what taxes is this going to generate and from what sources? And the applicant can certainly correct me on this, but in discussing this with staff, my understanding is that this is a standalone business and it's adjacent to, but separate from the Spotsylvania operation. So if as a standalone business, my understanding would be that everything related to this business would happen on this site in Caroline. And if that's the case, then all the sales would be happening in Caroline and they'd be taxed in Caroline. But again, that's, you can certainly get clarification from the applicant on that, but that's my understanding of the situation. But any more detail on the specific taxes it would generate, we'd have to talk to the treasurer and the Commissioner of the Revenue, but generally activity in Caroline, sales in Caroline are going to be taxed in Caroline. Fleet vehicles, garage in Caroline are going to be taxed in Caroline. Real estate obviously is going to be taxed in Caroline. So that's what I understand on that front. And then you had a question. There is a definition in the zoning ordinance between minor and major auto repair, and I can read that if you still are interested.
No, sir.
in that.
I was in our code book this afternoon looking for it, and I could not find it.
It might be because it's it's like I think it's a motor vehicle repair, and you might have been looking in a different section.
I was
But
under Title 10.
Yeah. Yeah, it's in the definition section, but it is there.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Any other?
So my understanding is that if the sale occurs in Caroline and the repair is done in Caroline, Caroline is due a portion. However, if the sales office is in Spotsylvania and the repair is done in Caroline, Caroline gets zero. Would that be a fair?
That is probably something that I would want to confirm with the treasurer and or the Commissioner of the Revenue. Probably the Commissioner of the Revenue specifically about how that situation would be addressed if the businesses span the two localities and how taxes would be allocated.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. McKenzie. Mr. Judy. Sir, you've heard my concerns.
Yes, and I'm not going to try to speak for the treasurer or the Commissioner of Revenue, but
Don't want you to, sir.
But our understanding was that because we're now creating, in a sense, two different businesses, that whatever occurs on the Caroline side would be taxable in Caroline. So in other words, all car repair that's done for the public's benefit that comes in, regardless of whether the person comes in and sits on the Spotsylvania side in the waiting room while the work is being done on the Caroline side, that work is actually invoiced for Caroline. And so therefore, and I think my client would be more than happy to be paying Caroline rates as opposed to Spotsylvania rates, but that's neither here nor there. But you had mentioned before that because you have been very generous to them in the past, that Caroline should get a piece of the pie. And so in a sense, by doing this, by creating these two different businesses, Caroline will get a larger piece of the pie. And
Can we get that reduced to writing? Because you're an attorney, you and I both know if it's not in writing, it doesn't exist.
It doesn't exist. It's like that commercial for Wills and Trust where the guy pops out of the back of the couch and says, doesn't count. I understand. But that's our understanding, and we certainly are not going to fight that if that is the case. And in fact, we would be proponents of that working that way on behalf of Caroline. The second question, someone asked square footage of the building. I believe it's 1,800 square feet as it exists right now.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other
Yeah, not to beat a dead horse, but again, I would be concerned about, I want to be greedy and I don't want to be Spotsylvania, but if you're going to be in a waiting area and you're next door in Spotsylvania, then those vending and sales taxes are going to be on that side and not on my side. So, like I said, I don't want to beat a dead horse, but I
understand.
I would like for this to be a standalone business because it's too easily to commingle the businesses.
Well, unfortunately, it is the same owner, so
I understand.
that things get commingled, but you do your accounting as you're required, and
Certainly understand.
hopefully that'll take care of that issue.
Two businesses would require two separate accounts or accounting measures.
I'm not an accountant, but I have been to a Holiday Inn. I don't.
So, we're making an audio recording of this, of course, and it would serve as a record.
Okay.
Can we rest assured that the owner will maintain a separate set of books for the auto care, the urgent auto care, and pay the appropriate taxes to the county of Caroline?
I will let him answer that.
Yes, sir, definitely.
All
I
right,
will
sir.
have a separate bookkeeping for the workshop, so the proper tax that goes to the Caroline County.
All right, sir, it's a matter of recording, and I'm going to hold you at your word. Thank you.
Sir.
How would you handle the employees working at the shop for their break areas if we don't have bathrooms or and things of that nature or sitting areas?
Well, again, there are employees who are working there right now doing repairs and work on cars that are being sold, and they have been going back and forth between the buildings as necessary and doing what they need to do, because that's all that's required at the moment. And like I said, we will do as the health department requires us in order to provide the necessary facilities if they are required. And that's, can't necessarily expect my client to spend money on a drain field and spend $25,000, $30,000 if it's not necessary.
Yeah, but I would like to see it as a standalone business. Caroline is Caroline, Spotsylvania is Spotsylvania. And again, I wouldn't like to see, unless there are some documents that would say it's approved, it will work together, but.
I understand,
Yes.
but
Okay.
we were struck with this piece of property that's cut in half by this line, and we're trying to do the best we can with it.
I respect that. Thank you.
I have a question. It's probably for staff or our attorney. If this business comes back in the future and wants to expand, become larger, can we require at that time that it become a standalone business?
So it's going to be a standalone business as it is because it's located in Caroline, and the Commissioner of Revenue is not going to just give the taxes away to Spotsylvania. So it's going to be a standalone business in Caroline. Should there be any issues with the health department or the building department on upgrades to the building, then they won't get a certificate of occupancy, which means they would not be able to open the minor auto repair. So if they want to operate the minor auto repair in Caroline and it be a Caroline business, they will have to meet all health department, all building department regulations, or they can't open. And the business license will be in Caroline as well.
So it appears to be it is a standalone.
If it's located in Caroline, they'll need a Caroline County business license, which then means Caroline County will collect the taxes.
So we're just getting real estate taxes right now.
Right now, you're getting real estate taxes. The rezoning did change the taxes because it was RP and it went to B1, so we did get a higher tax rate from that. But currently, no, the sales office for the used car dealership is in Spotsylvania, and we are not getting taxes from them selling cars in Spotsylvania. Should this business be established in Caroline, it would require a Caroline County business license, and it would be a Caroline County business, and Caroline County would collect taxes.
Okay, so the business license now is being held in Spotsylvania.
For the used auto dealership, yes, because it's
Yes.
located in Spotsylvania.
And we agreed to allow them to do mechanical work in Caroline, but
Previously, yes, the garage, or currently, yes, the garage is an accessory to the used auto dealership because to park the 9 cars on our side of the line, they needed a special exception for a used car dealership. So theoretically, they have not theoretically, but they have a used car dealership. It's just the sales office is in Spotsylvania. So the accessory building is in Caroline.
so we get no business license, no, nothing other than real estate taxes currently.
Currently.
Okay.
Anything further, commissioners? Thank you, Mr. Pennington. All right, commissioners, any discussion? Dr. Horton?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, I was gonna say Dr. Horton is her district, yeah.
Let me say this as far as discussion. I think we, like Mr. Young said, we've beaten this horse to death. And I really could not see any reason not to approve it, to be quite honest with you. As long as the county is going to be getting its fair share of the taxes, I think it's good to go. But that's for us as a body to decide.
Yeah, I would like to see, you know, I'm in favor of it as well, but I would like to see it with some conditions.
Which conditions?
Which conditions, Mr. Young?
Well, I know we can't hold them accountable for the perk, but you know, what happens if it does not perk? What are we doing? How do we have any recourse, or how do they have any recourse? If it doesn't perk, then they're going to continue to operate the way they are now, and we only get real estate taxes and no business tax from this.
My understanding is that if the land does not perk, then once this matter goes to the board and is approved, they would, if necessary, be able to piggyback onto the Spotsylvania side
If
of the drain
If
field.
Spotsylvania, yeah, if the drain field is
Adequate.
large enough.
correct.
That is correct. There are also other approved methods of sewage disposal approved by the building department. They could use composting toilets or incinerator toilets, things like that. So if it doesn't perk and if Spotsylvania cannot accommodate the drain field, they could go through the building department to work on another solution. So they will have to meet all building department regulations, health department regulations. And if for some reason the drain fields don't work, they could seek another solution.
So,
I'm
so
sorry.
going
Are we
forward, I'm sorry.
requiring a bathroom?
As of right now, the building department comments is that a bathroom will be required in the facility.
I
Okay.
would think so. And going forward, I mean, what happens 10, 15, 20 years from now if the client wants to sell and the new client does not want to have a repair shop there? What conditions, what use would that facility serve?
You could condition this special exception permit to be non-transferable. And so if a new person purchased the property, it means to open a minor auto repair, they would have to go back through the special exception process. To make it non-transferable means if the owner sells the property, then the minor auto repair is closed and would need to go through the process again.
Thank you, sir.
Well, I mean, I'm not totally against it. I wish we had more resolution right now on the bathroom issue, but you know, if planning is satisfied that health department is going to work it out, because I think there needs to be a bathroom in the facilities, and also, you know, if the planning office is satisfied that the tax revenue that issue has been settled, then we could probably move forward.
All right, commissioners, do we have a motion?
Okay. Whereas special exception requests 02/2024. I got the correct one right, yes. Appears to be generally consistent with the goals and objectives of the comprehensive plan and future land use map, and whereas the public necessity, convenience, general welfare, and good zoning practices warrants the approval of this request, I recommend that 02-2024 be forwarded to the Board of Supervisors with a recommendation of approval.
I'll second.
Commissioners, there's a motion by Dr. Horton, seconded by Mr. Williams and Mr. Weaver. Any further discussion? There being no further discussion, all those in favor of recommendation of approval signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it unanimously. This matter will be forwarded to the Board of Supervisors with recommendation of approval.
Thank you, sir. And
Mr. Judy, good luck next month, sir.
thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a 15-minute break, please. We will be back at 8:13. resume our session. Item number 3, let's see, SPEX 07 2024, Mr. Pennington.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. Second public hearing tonight, SPX 07 2024, Auto Body Watts. The applicant's requesting approval of a special exception permit for a motor vehicle body and painting shop pursuant to Article 10, Section 3.13 of the Caroline County zoning ordinance. Subject property, tax map 56-A-14, is located at the intersection of Industrial Drive and Aspen Road. Property is bounded to the north by 2 propane distribution facilities and a vacant industrial parcel to the east. The CSX Railroad is located directly across Industrial Drive to the west, and a truck terminal located directly across Aspen Road to the south. The property is currently developed with 4 existing buildings, 4,000 square foot office building, 2 garages, and a double-wide structure. The applicant desires to operate a body and painting shop within the 2 existing garages on the property. Property was previously utilized as a legal non-conforming use for RV repair. The RV repair use ceased to operate in 2022. The 2 garages to be used for the bodywork and painting shop are located to the rear of the office structure that is currently permitted as a landscaping contractor's office. The body shop has an existing entrance approved by VDOT that will be utilized. The double-wide structure located at the rear of the property may be used as an office for the body shop in the future. Structure located on the Industrial Drive frontage of the parcel is currently permitted as a contractor storage and sales facility by a landscaping company. The structure will be used as an office, and the fenced area to the left will be used for storage once the company occupies the building. And that is currently permitted landscaping contractor's office facility that's not associated with the body shop. Just want to let you know what else is going on the property. The proposed use will involve repairing vehicle body damage from accidents or for insurance companies, private auto body repair for dents and scratches, and body work for painting for vehicle restoration. There will be no mechanical repair of vehicles. Should the applicant wish to conduct mechanical repair of vehicles, a separate special exception for minor auto repair would be required. The applicant may construct a new building for the body and painting shop in the future, in which case the landscaping company would expand into the existing garage for equipment storage. The comprehensive plan designates this area as light industrial. A body and painting shop is permitted in the M1 zoning district with a special exception permit. This use is consistent with the comprehensive plan. All agency comments that have been received regard improvements to the structure as dictated by the use. Should this special exception be approved, all agency comments will be addressed at the permitting phase of the project. Staff offers the following conditions for the Planning Commission to consider if there's a recommendation of approval. The 2 which shall be recorded in the circuit court within 30 days of receipt. All products used for painting or repair shall be stored and disposed of properly following all federal, state, and local requirements. All parts shall be stored within a fully enclosed structure. No vehicles used for parts may be stored on the property. No more than 12 vehicles awaiting repair, painting shall be on the property at any time. And all vehicles shall be stored in a fenced area located behind the shop and screened from Aspen Road. And no inoperable vehicles shall be stored on the property unless awaiting repair. And this concludes the staff presentation. I'm happy to address any questions that you may have.
Mr. Pennington, this is right next door to E.M. Gray, isn't it?
That is correct. If you look at the aerial photo, E.M. Gray would be the parcel to the north west. And then the parcel to the northeast is also a propane distribution.
Thank you, sir. That's all that I had.
That would be the E.M. Gray parcel that I'm pointing at on the big screen.
Yes, sir.
Sorry, Ms. Horton. That one right there. That's the propane distribution.
Right, that's what I thought.
Mhm.
Thank you. That's all I had.
And by awaiting repair, you mean that you'd have to have a contract?
Correct. Just like we spoke on the last case.
Yeah.
If an inoperable vehicle was on site, which in classic car restoration, they're probably not going to have insurance or plates sometimes while going through the restoration period. As long as they had a contract with the body and painting shop to have repairs done, then it could be stored on site. Yes, which one?
With the buildings.
Okay. That one?
Yeah. So the cars that would be parked there would be parked inside of that gate there?
Yes, I have a better picture
for
of
the
that.
front?
So this is a better picture for that. If you look, the furthest garage in both pictures, this is a picture from the front of the garages and the rear of the garages. The larger garage that is furthest away from us, the cars will be stored behind that. So I gave you a shot from the front and a shot from the rear to show you that all cars would be screened from Aspen Road. It'd be hard to get an angle where you could actually see a car awaiting repair.
And can I see the picture with the module, the double
Yes.
wide?
And so the modular building previously was used as an office for a catering company. And the body shop may use the double wide structure as an office for the body shop. Again, should they want to use that, it would have to go through building permitting and get all the proper permits in place, inspected, and approved for an office.
So other than someone working in the office, that would be the only place the vehicles would be parked, right?
Yes,
Where a vehicle would be parked, everything else would be on the other side of the big building.
that is correct.
Okay.
So the larger building on the, if you go back to the other photo,
Yes, sir.
one more, yes, sir,
Oh.
there.
There we go. Oh, the front building?
Yes, sir, the front of this building.
Yes.
So that is used now by a landscaping company?
They haven't moved in yet, but they have applied for the permit, and I believe everything's been approved. Zoning is signed off on the permit. They would use the building as an office, and then they would store behind the fence any type of mulch or equipment or pea gravel, any type of landscape storage materials.
So they're separate buildings?
They are separate buildings, separate companies operating out of each building. So it's one parcel with 4 buildings. This building and the adjacent yard to the left would be the landscaping contractor's sales facility. And the 2 garages and the double wide structure, which you can see behind that garage, would be associated with the special exception area for the auto body and painting shop.
Thank you.
So vehicles for the lawn care, that the 2 businesses would both be inside that fence behind the big building, right? So that'd be potential that there would be more than 12 vehicles if you count the other businesses' vehicles parked there, right?
So the landscaping company, I'm not sure if they're going to park any vehicles in there. I assume they'll park any type of machinery that they need, maybe lawnmowers, or if they have, a small bobcat or something like that, that would be in the fenced facility. But the 2 facilities have separate entrances. The body shop right here shows the entrance off of Aspen Drive, and there is the entrance off of Industrial Drive for the landscaping company. So they have separate entrances. They are on the same parcel, but they're fully separated.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioners, anything further, Mr. Pennington, at this time? Thank you, Mr. Pennington.
You have, wait,
I'm sorry.
you have an overhead of this, correct?
Yes, I have the overhead is right there.
Okay, so the landscaping is,
Yes. So if you look at my,
you pointed it out before.
yeah, if you look at my pointer, this aerial is from 2001, so you can't see it. But the fence line is right here, and the plantings, the cedar trees have been planted along this frontage here, which will help screen the landscaping equipment once they mature. And there's also a row of evergreen trees that have been planted down the property line here as well on Aspen Road.
But it also appeared that you had windscreen on the fence line?
That is correct. The fence line, as it shows here on the front of the building, does have the black plastic slats in it, so that it's not chain link. It does have some opaqueness. Yes.
But aren't we talking about the auto business and the landscaping both remaining there?
Yes, the landscaping is permitted by right and has already applied for their permits and received approval. And they would operate on the front half of the property, right about there to
Yeah.
the left. The body shop would use
It's
this.
behind.
Right. The body shop would use this entrance off of Aspen Road and would utilize this property back here. Now, the special exception envelope is from here back. So everything from here to your right to the east could be used for the body shop. And that's due to future plans to expand and build a new garage for the body shop. In which case, if a new garage was built for the body shop, then the landscaping company could then utilize one or both of these buildings to store equipment or any other supplies that they need.
And the property is owned by,
Property is owned by G.H. Watts.
okay, and so they basically, they rent.
It would be a it would be a lease situation, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Watts is shaking.
But it is owned by Ream LLC.
If we could get that on mic so that it is audible.
I'm sorry, sir. Yes, I didn't know it's totally out of turn, excuse me.
Mr. Gary Watts?
Mattapanai District. I just for the record, Gary H. Watts does not own that. It's owned by the LLC, which is Ream LLC, which is named under the address of the property. And the tax records show that as well.
Thank you, Mr. Watts.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate that clarification. Mr. Pennington, anything further from you?
No, thank you. If you have any other questions come up, I'll be happy to address them.
All right, sir, thank you. We'd like to hear from the applicant's representative now, please.
Good evening, Kevin Whiteman from the Bowling Green District. I asked the applicant to let me get up and say a short little piece on this. We worked on it before I retired. The applicant has gone through, totally refurbished the whole area, the wastewater characterization that I thought was a good question earlier. We've done that all up front. We have 450 gallons a day or 13 employees there. So all that's been done. The permitting through the building department for the new certificate of occupancy for this new owner has been done because all that had to be done when it changed hands. And of course, it'll be done again if this SE gets approved and the new business starts. So we've taken care of everything up front. Unless y'all have any questions concerning building code or health department, but it's all in the package and it's been done.
I have no questions. Looks like a very neat, clean, orderly piece of property.
Yes, perfect use, perfect location. That's what we want down there. And I got to be honest with you, we don't have an auto body shop in the county, so it might be good for folks that have little fender benders. They don't have to go far from home.
It wouldn't do to have a trashy auto body shop directly behind the landscaping company.
No,
That would not
bode
balance
well.
it.
And the applicant would not allow that to happen. Any questions?
No questions. I'd like to make a comment, though. As I previously mentioned earlier, with this particular property, it is extremely aesthetically pleasing to the eyes. I wish most business in the county looked like what this looked like from here. And if it only gets better, I can certainly appreciate it and commend you for that. Thank you.
And to be honest with you, we need to reuse. Building code got smart and came up with the existing building code for incentives for folks to use some of these old abandoned buildings. And I think what the applicant did was top shelf.
Looks good. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right, we'll now open the public hearing. Public hearing for SPEX 07-2024 is now open. Anyone wishing to speak on this matter? Anyone wishing to speak regarding this matter? Anyone wishing to speak? Seeing no one coming forward, the public hearing is now closed. Commissioners, any further questions of staff or the applicant? There being no further questions, again, Mr. Rollins, this is in your district, sir. Do you have a motion?
Yes, Chairman. I so move that we approve the special exception permit for SPEX 07-2024.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Rollins, seconded by Mr. Weber. Any further discussion? There being no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it unanimously. This matter will be forwarded to the Board of Supervisors with a recommendation of approval. Thank you, gentlemen. Have a good evening. Item number 4. Text Amendment 05-2024, Mr. Hughes.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the commission.
No one told me.
I'm going to do just a quick brief history to bring everyone up to speed on how we arrived here tonight relative to this matter. So back in September, the Board of Supervisors requested that this topic be placed on an agenda and asked that the Planning Commission attend a joint public hearing on October 8th. At that joint public hearing, the Planning Commission deferred the matter to this meeting for discussion and some additional information. And so after that meeting and the commission's request for additional information, staff, we went out and investigated 12 jurisdictions to see how data centers are permitted around the Commonwealth. And so included in your packet was a brief chart as well as some text information regarding those 12 jurisdictions and how they handle data centers. And you will see, as there are 12 different jurisdictions, there are 12 different ways that they deal with data centers. Some require, don't permit them. There were 2 jurisdictions that do not permit data centers at all. One jurisdiction has an overlay district that allows data centers within that overlay, regardless of the zoning within that overlay. You have a couple other jurisdictions that data centers are by right and would only require a special use if they cannot comply with the development standards that are currently in place in those jurisdictions. And so we didn't see any jurisdiction that had a straight out requirement for a special exception of those 12 that we looked at. And so I just wanted to bring some history here. Again, this came about, I think, because of some citizens' concerns about data centers on M1 zone property in the county, and citizens not being aware that they may be by right. And so citizens had requested that the county consider making data centers a special exception in the M1 zoning district. As you are aware, and this is for more the public's sake, currently data centers are a permitted use by right in the M1 zoning district, but they have to comply with the standards of the PERT, so PERT zoning ordinance. So if anyone has a piece of property that could meet the standards of the PERT ordinance, and the first standard, the first line of that ordinance states that it has to have utilities available to that property. So the fact that a piece of property is zoned M1 does not automatically qualify it for to be developed as for a data center. It has to have utilities available to it. And later on in my presentation, I will show you some maps that kind of illustrate this point a little bit differently. So a little bit more history. In 2023, Caroline County amended the county's comprehensive plan with the introduction of the Plan Innovation Research Technology land use designation. And also in 2023, the county adopted a PERT zoning classification. In addition, when the county was developing the PERT comp plan amendment and zoning ordinance, the county considered and identified parcels that are not necessarily in areas that were identified for PERT development on the future land use map that could be developed for technology uses or data centers. So these are large parcels that have M1 zoning classification and are in close proximity to the necessary infrastructure so that they could be developed as data centers. So these would be parcels of significant size that have utilities available to them. If you read in your packet, I put in an excerpt from the comprehensive plan that talks about the intention of the PERT district and the desire that data centers develop in the campus style settings. And as a part of the they would develop in a campus style setting so that they would not have significant impact on the surrounding community. So as a part of the ordinance that came after the comp plan land use designation because the zoning ordinance is the tool that is used that determines the physical development of properties. And so that's why the PERT zoning ordinance has a number of standards in it. And those standards are to ensure that the physical development of the technology uses in data centers occurs in accordance with the vision in the land use section of the comprehensive plan. If a parcel is not in an area with the PERT land use designation, the development standards are in place to ensure development of these parcels comport with the PERT land use vision. The zoning ordinance regulates the physical features. The current PERT has limits on the permitted uses, the uses that are allowed by special exception, and accessory uses and structures. Also included for properties that have to go through a rezoning process in order to have a data center, there are additional submission requirements. So the ordinance also regulates the setbacks, the architectural standards, and has development standards that include site design, landscaping, buffers, fencing, construction footprints, signage, building heights, access, lighting, noise, screening of equipment, and an emergency response training. These standards, as I've said, were developed to ensure that data centers and technology uses would have the appropriate physical features to allow these uses to exist and function with minimal impact on adjacent uses in the community. The allowance of data centers as a by right use in the M1 district was deemed appropriate because the standards established in the PERT zoning ordinance. So a review of the M1 parcels that have sufficient size and are in proximity to required infrastructures, identifies that these parcels are currently in areas where there's similar development occurring. So these larger parcels that are available in the county that could be developed as a data center are currently in areas where you have existing industrial development or are adjacent to the interstate and are sufficiently large and there's limited residential density around them. Excuse me. So as discussed during the joint public hearing, there were several data center projects in Caroline that are at various stages in the development process. And so what I'll do right now is, well, let me keep going. Excuse me. So the conclusion that we've ultimately come to is that the PERT designation in the future land use map and the zoning ordinance, ensures that the development of data centers would comport with the vision of the comp plan and would have limited impacts on the surrounding community. Staff has, recommended or is recommending that the commission consider to recommend to the board that a 75-acre minimum be required for data centers to be a by right use. And the reason we say 75 acres is because that is sufficient land to meet the vision and goals that are laid out in a comprehensive plan, and it's sufficient acreage to be able to develop a site in conformance with the ordinance requirements. So it takes about 15 acres to do a single building. And we base that on right now at the Mattamead site, the AWS site up on 606. Their smallest building is 129,000 square feet right now, what they show in phase one. So if you took that building as a standalone use and accounted for the parking, the necessary stormwater management, the required setbacks and buffers and screening, the need for a substation, it will require about 15 acres to get all of that on a single site. So, that's why we said, and that would allow, if you took that 15 acres and you had an M1 piece of that size that was in an area that you didn't want it to be, that would be if the recommendation is accepted, then that small parcel would be eliminated from eligibility for a data center. And I think that's a most appropriate elimination because, like I said, the goals of the comp plan are to have campus style data centers that can be developed with minimal impact on the community. So as a part of this recommendation, there are a couple of questions that have come up relative to how it would be enacted. And I think there's at least one policy decision that would have to be made. One question that has been asked is if I have two parcels that are not 75 acres by themselves, could they be combined to create a 75-acre parcel to be eligible? And as it stands right now, they could. Because given all things considered, they still have to comport with the PERT ordinance, and they would most likely be in an appropriately cited area for that to occur. The policy question is pending zoning applications. How would they be impacted by this change? Well, that's a policy question there for the board. The board, as you may recall from the joint hearing in your packet, there was an option 4 in that packet that allowed the board to establish a grandfathering policy or set a standard for going forward. So that is still an alternative that could be adopted. The other question is, I'll give you an example. We have a rezoning application in right now for a very large piece of property that is seeking an M1 zoning classification. It's more than 1,000 acres. So immediately, if that parcel was zoned to the M1 zoning classification under the proposed 75-acre option, then that property would immediately be eligible for a data center. Excuse me. Well, what staff would do, and I think what the commission would do, and I think what the board would do is, say to that applicant, you need to be pretty specific about what uses you're going to have on that property, because if not, then essentially what would be occurring is kind of a quasi way of allowing data centers without any additional oversight. And so, it would be up to staff and up to the commission, up to the board to point to the applicant. You are requesting a rezoning that is going to immediately put you in the category of being eligible for a data center. And we want you to determine or establish as a part of this rezoning whether or not data centers are going to be a part of that project. So in essence, that kind of eliminates the bait and switch, so to speak. So addressing that up front with applicants that come forward for rezoning. Just as if you had a property that goes through any type of rezoning, we ask for the generalized development plan, and we ask them to declare what the uses are going to be on the property. They would do that in a rezoning case. It'd be through the proffers and the GDP. And then if there was any future development that was contrary to those proffers or to that GDP, it wouldn't be allowed. And if they wanted it to be allowed, they would have to come back through the process and seek an additional approval. So I just put that there as well as a question to be asked.
Yeah, excuse me.
Yes.
So what you're saying, I just want to make sure I get this right. It seems to me that now you are saying that we can request proffers. Is that correct?
No, I'm not saying that at all.
Okay.
What I'm saying is the applicant would proffer, the applicant would offer to restrict the uses on their property.
Okay, so the applicant has to come when they submit. They would have to offer this to the county first.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Certainly didn't want to make that misstep and say that we were required. So I appreciate that correction.
Thank you.
So what I'd like to do now is I'd like to show you a couple of maps to kind of illustrate what I was speaking of in terms of parcels. So this map was in your packet with at the joint public hearing with the board, and is also in your packet tonight. And so what it represents are parcels that are between the sizes of 15 and 74 acres, and parcels that are 75 acres or plus that have utilities. So those are in the purple are the 75 plus acres with utilities, and then the green are 15 to 74 acres. They may or may not have utilities as well. So this one here is an inset of that is over here. This is the Ladysmith area. And so what we see right now of vacant available parcels, you have a large piece here, you have a large piece here. This piece here is kind of dissected by a road as a part of an industrial park. So it's not a wholly contiguous 75 acres. And this is a smaller piece here. But what's important to note about these pieces is, most importantly, one is you see these blue lines here represent water and sewer facilities, the blue and green lines. So the public utilities are here. The dashed lines here represent utility lines. The other thing to note about this group of parcels here is the fact that it is adjacent to 95. So back when the PERT ordinance was being developed in 2022 and then through 2023, this is the type of parcel that was deemed appropriate for a data center because it is adjacent to I-95. There's limited residential uses in proximity, and there's currently an industrial use here, and industrial uses here and other commercial uses there. This is another piece here. It's actually three pieces. One is a 100 plus acre piece here, and then there are two pieces here that are actually less than 75 individually. So that leads to that question, could those two pieces be combined to be a 75 acre piece? And under the proposal, as we have presented it tonight, then that would be an eligible, you could combine those two pieces and have an eligible piece for a data center. There again, note the proximity to 95, the proximity to the utilities, and the limited residential development near it. The inset number 2, which is down here, which is the Carmel Church area, and that inset is over here. You see there's one parcel here, and this is Ruther Glen Road. This, for some of you who've been on the commission for a while may remember, this piece was removed from the Carmel Church Station rezoning and rezoned to industrial. It's actually two pieces of property, but combined they're about 90 acres. And so that would be an eligible piece, and there's water and sewer available here. The Trader Joe's warehouse is essentially right here. So the water, this map doesn't display it very well, but the utilities are actually up to this piece right here. So essentially across the street. So those are the eligible parcels in the county right now that would meet the requirement of being larger than 75 acres that a data center could go on if it was a by right use, if the ordinance was amended to limit it to 75 acres. We also spoke at the board meeting about current projects that are data center projects that are at various stages of development within the county. And so, as you can see, we'll start at the top here with the Madam Mead project, the AWS project up here near Thornburg. That project is in the site plan process. I think their second submission of their site plan has been submitted, and it is going through the necessary steps to gain site plan approval. Project North is a project that is being worked on here in the county. The Ladysmith Data Center is on Route 639. As a matter of fact, they had a community meeting tonight. That's a 110 acre piece. So right now that is a by right use in the county. And then across the street from Board Church Road, you have the Bazaar piece. I think most people are familiar with the Bazaar property, currently zoned M1, and there's a site plan submitted on that as well. So both the Ladysmith project and the Bazaar Center project each have a site plan submitted on them as well. And then just below it is the Bull Church Data Center, which has filed a rezoning application, and that is in review and may make it to the commission next month. On the opposite side of the street, you have the Good Earth property. There's a company that is investigating that property for a data center. Now that property has proffers on it and will have to go through a proffer amendment to allow a data center to occur on there. So in that instance, that's a piece of property that, regardless of what happens with the ordinance, they're going to have to go through a public process to amend the proffers to allow data centers. Down at the bottom here, you have the MC Dean property here. And we did have a technical review committee meeting with an applicant for a data center project there. And then that monitor blocking my view. So then there's Project South here. That is that piece there I spoke about. That was a part of the Carmel Church Station property that was taken out and was zoned. And then you also have the Avaya Data Center that was approved by the board back in earlier part of this year. So as you can see, this map also shows, the M1 properties greater than 50 acres. There's 6 sites, and then there are 9 data center projects right now at various stages in the process here in Caroline County. So this map I wanted to show you because this shows kind of goes back to the point of just because you have a piece of property that's zoned M1 doesn't necessarily make it eligible for a data center. So these are the M1 zone properties in the county that are greater than 50 acres. And you can see there are some scattered around, but what's important to note is, as I said, the first line of the PERT ordinance, remember, if you zoned M1, you want to do a data center, you have to develop the data center in accordance with the PERT ordinance. The first line of the PERT ordinance says you have to have utilities. So that eliminates a number of these parcels that are zoned M1 because they don't have utilities. The most obvious example of that is the piece out here in Sparta. It's a large parcel zone M1, but obviously you couldn't do a data center because there are no utilities. Same for the piece down here. Same for the pieces up here that are very close to Bowling Green. Zoned M1, very large properties, but there are no utilities available. So there again, those are essentially eliminated from if the ordinance was changed to go to 75 acres, those parcels would be eliminated as the others. So here again, this is another map that kind of shows industrial properties in the county. And what it gives us is a total land area of 3,947 acres, or 204 sites that have industrial zoning. This slide also depicts the M1 property that's under contract or sold, which is 21 sites. There's 912 acres that currently have the PERT zoning classification, and that is the Matamede site. It's the only property in the county that has PERT zoning, and that is up at the Thornburg. And then the M1 property that is in use that is unavailable is 114 sites, or 1,754 acres. And so in aggregate, the M1 available property in the county is 618 acres or 69 sites. Now, that does not mean, I will reiterate, that does not mean that there are 69 sites that you could put a data center on. I have to keep stressing that because it keeps being characterized that as a property has M1 zoning, that it could have a data center on it. And remember, the first line of the PERT ordinance says you have to have utilities. So I just wanted to stress that. But I wanted to illustrate this map because it shows the available M1 zone properties or M1 zone properties in the county, whether they are available or unavailable. These are the properties in Caroline County. So just for reference, this is an excerpt from the comprehensive plan. It says the identification and protection of suitable tracts of land for technology uses and development is a critical economic development strategy of the county. The county has large inventory of large tracts of land in close proximity to public utilities, electric, water, sewer, reuse water, either within or in proximity to growth areas, and can incorporate these desirable sites under appropriate circumstances. These are areas identified for planned innovation, research, and technology and development areas, and are intended to be preserved for high value technology uses. Such lands must be protected from less desirable commercial and industrial uses that can be located on other suitably zoned property for such uses. Development should be strictly limited to technology research and development, data centers, higher education, and ancillary uses at an appropriate scale to support the primary technology use. Development should be designed and built to a campus-style setting with design and development standards sensitive to the environment and features of the site. Zoning of these areas may be accomplished through the Planned Innovation Research Technology District or Planned Industrial Park District that prohibit or eliminate uses not supportive of technology. Zoning approval shall only be considered when adequate public utilities are currently available, adequate provisions are made to provide the necessary utilities commensurate with development as determined by the Board of Supervisors. That language is directly out of the comprehensive plan. So, just a table. I do have also. Can you pull up the excerpt? It's a PDF of the PERT ordinance. And I wanted to read that because just reiterate from a policy perspective, the 75 acres minimum size for a data center is in conformance with the goals and the vision laid out in the comprehensive plan, as I just read. So those are large parcels that could accommodate a campus style setting and have utilities and have minimal impact. And so this is the Plan Research Innovation Technology zoning code. So section 1, and I think what's important to note is the purpose and intent, the very first section of the code. Right there. The purpose and intent of the Plan Innovation Research and Technology District is to provide a controlled and protected environment for orderly growth and development of research and technology businesses and industries within a campus-style setting. This district may also allow a special use or other selected activities and facilities, which provide support services or complement permitted uses. To these ends, certain uses which would function more effectively in other districts or would interfere with the preferred permitted uses and the purpose of this district are excluded.
Leon,
Yes.
I've heard you use the same words a couple of times, and I would like to ask, what does a campus-style project look like? I mean, you've used it 6 or 7 times, and yes, I know I'm supposed to know, but I don't know. Okay. What does a campus-style project look like?
Sure.
That's all. Thank you.
Okay. So I will answer your question in just a second. But I want to get to that next paragraph of the PERT ordinance, where it says adequate public utilities, water, sewer, and electric must be available to the property or provisions made by the developer to extend utilities to the site in a manner and time frame acceptable to the Board of Supervisors. So, and there again, the next sentence, property shall be located in proximity to public utilities to minimize unintended growth consequences with utility extensions. Property should be served by a road network of adequate capacity to serve the proposed uses. So to reiterate, this is the law. This is the ordinance. The first paragraph I read to you was the language out of the comp plan, which is the vision. The comp plan is the vision for your community. The ordinance sets the standards that allow your vision to be carried out. So to allow the physical features, the physical development to look like you want it to look in the vision. Now, to answer Mr. Weaver's question, a campus-style facility would be a piece of property that would have a 1 or 2 entrances, because there's limitations in this document in the ordinance that limit the number of entrances. You would have 1 or 2 entrances into a property. Then you would have potentially land bays off of a road network that would have, say, buildings set up on those individual land bays along an individual street network. Now, within that, and then, so what also goes into that is the preservation of green space, the requirements of screening and buffering. And so essentially, it's not a clear cutting of the property and sticking up buildings like on a traditional industrial site. So a campus style setting is just what, if you could imagine the best example I can give you from in a business use in this area for me is probably Innsbrook, down in Richmond off of West Broad Street. So if you go into Innsbrook, there's a major entrance feature. You have a road network, and off of that road network, you have pad sites of office structures. So just imagine buildings, data center buildings essentially look like large office buildings. There's nothing particularly distinct about a data center building. at all. It's a big building. The Lingerfeld building that was just built on Route 207 there at Carmel Church, which sits right on the road, could essentially be a data center building. I mean, that's essentially what they would look like. But they would be on a network of streets. They would have individual access points. They would have, because of the PERT ordinance, there's a requirement that there be 20% open space. There's a requirement that there be screening. And so that's essentially what a campus style development will look like.
Okay. Thank you.
So I'm sure you have lots of questions. I've said a lot. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have. And I would say just for procedurally, so tonight, if the commission decided that you wanted to forward the original language that was advertised at the prior meeting, then we wouldn't have to make any changes at all. That would just be, you would say, hey, board, we're just going to go with the simple method of changing from a permitted use in the B1 to a use by special exception, and then that would go back to the board. If the commission decides you want to do something different, make some amendments, make some adjustments, go with the staff recommendation of the 75 acres, and that's going to have to be re-advertised and go to a new public hearing and kind of start the process over again. So I just wanted to make that procedural announcement, and Chris, correct me if I said anything.
So what you're saying at this particular stage is the simplest thing to do is eliminate it as a by right. That's the easiest way to handle the whole situation. To eliminate the data center in an M1 as a by right.
Mm-hmm.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. That's what I thought we wanted.
Okay. I would add one thing, and just procedurally, you know, how we got back down here. You guys were there last time with the board, and I think that the instruction that I recall from the board was, come look at other options and potentially send up alternatives to them. And what we didn't know, which I think Mr. Leon was, Mr. Hughes was just highlighting, was we didn't know how big a change if the alternatives are going to be, whether they're going to require new advertising or not. And we're certainly at a stage in this where we can look at other changes, but we wanted to give you a recommended approach, and with the recommended language of basically bifurcating 75 acres and greater by right, 75 acres, less than 75 acres, special exception. That's enough of a change that we think another public hearing would be merited. So if that's the way you wanted to go, we would need to write up that language, advertise it for another public hearing, and bring it back to you.
So if we did that, at this point, do we have to address the applications that are already in?
That would be the grandfathering thing is something that we'd handle at the board level, because you guys don't have to make a recommendation on that. But I don't believe if with that route, I think there'd be a lot less incentive to grandfather anybody, because I think most of the applications that are in, if not all of them, are greater than 75 acres. So grandfathering would be kind of unnecessary for most of them. So I think that would remove a lot of the incentive for the board to do any of that grandfathering, but they still could if they elected to.
So Mr. Hughes, they're all 75 acres or large? Okay.
And then
those that I showed you at some stage of development, yes.
Okay.
And then they would all have to still fall under the PERT standards, right?
Which they do today.
Which makes sense to me. If they fall under the PERT standards, which appears to be paramount to any other zoning processes that we have, if I'm saying it the correct way, it makes perfectly sense to continue to let it be by right, as opposed to, by right with the 75 acres or more, with utilities in place. Correct? As opposed to going the special exception route, which requires additional time, resources, allocations from the county, just so many different things. You know, you following where I'm going? You understand what I'm saying?
I am, and I would just, you know, to have this full discussion about the special use process. You know, the PERT ordinance has 43 or 34. My brain is mixing those two numbers up.
43.
I'm sorry.
43.
43. Thank you. 43 standards in it. That does not mean that there is a parcel out there that is not going to have some unique characteristic that you could condition that is not covered in those 43 standards.
Right.
So if you had a special exception process in place, then you could come up with a condition that might address that one particular instance. But you are correct. It does take more time for the applicant. It does take more time for staff. It takes more resources to do that. But there again, it puts another step in the process for approval. So
I'm just not understanding the hastiness, the rush for this, and why it's really needed for a special exception if we are requiring 75 acres or more.
Well, my concern is, see, it seems very broad saying they have to have utilities in place. I mean, we don't have adequate water, I don't think, for all of these, if they want to be water cooled.
I'm not sure about that. Are we?
well,
The groundwater, I mean, they've said the groundwater level is going down. You know, we're still in this long process of drawing from the Rappahannock River. And I think citizens are going to be upset if, you know, the water is given to, and that's the concern they brought to us. The water is being given to industry, data centers, instead of them.
and that would be a valid concern. But let me say this. Caroline County has had a water problem long before data centers came along.
Yeah.
So this issue of drawing water from the Rappahannock is not for solely data centers. I mean, there were a number of times this summer where the county had to place water restrictions for various reasons. And so, you know, east of 95 is within a groundwater withdrawal area. So that concern is valid if the data centers were going to use, you know, significant amounts of water. The projects that we have right now are all using, you know, systems that don't require a lot of water.
Are they air cooled? Are you telling me they're air cooled or no?
Yeah, they are using captured water, so they're not using.
So they only need to exchange out their water maybe once a year.
Exactly.
So all of them?
Mm-hmm. Those that are in the process right now.
Well,
yes,
not
ma'am.
Matamede, because they're
No,
going
we're
to
not
buy.
Matamede, but that
They're
water
going to
is
buy
coming
from
from
Spotsylvania, but all the, because that is the concern, and it just, the way it's written right now on the PERT, it's like you've got to have utilities in place, but it doesn't say, I mean, adequate, you know, adequate, it doesn't specify adequate amount of water to
Well,
me.
If you didn't have adequate water, you couldn't do the use. I mean, you.
I know,
You just,
but is that subjective? Do we, you know, is it?
yeah, yeah.
So we talked that Mr. Thomas raised that question at the board level, and it has been attuned to that issue as well. And we looked into that with Mr. Schiebel, and I think the distinction here is for the purposes of the PERT standard, you got to be able to connect, right, to water and wastewater. You have to be there. There has to be, our system has to go up to the property so that they can just install on the property line their connection. So connecting is one thing. That's what they need to do to satisfy the PERT standards. And stop me if I get this wrong. But then whether or not we have enough water to put in those pipes for them is a separate question. And that has to do with, they'll have to work with Joey and they'll have Mr. Schiebel and determine whether or not we have adequate water supply. And that's what those water supply agreements are that you've heard about, that that Spotsylvania is working on right now for the Mattamead campus. And the county, this was Mr. Thomas's question, the county has no obligation to deliver as much water as anyone asks for. The county has an obligation if a homeowner, wants to set up within the confines of our water code to tie them in. But if an applicant comes in and says, I need millions of gallons of water, the county has the ability to say, our system can't handle that and we can't deliver that to you. So that'll be a case by case basis as to whether or not the utilities can be provided. And frankly, like any business, not just data centers, but any business, they're going to have that discussion when they talk about, the performance agreement and whether or not, the business is going to want to know whether or not the county is able and willing to provide the water before they decide to locate there. But that's a separate question from this zoning question of, are the pipes there or can they be there? And then later on, they'll discuss whether there's enough water to put in those pipes.
Because I remember when we discussed, one application that we turned down, and where was it? It wasn't Jericho. Was it Jericho Road?
Mm-hmm.
And and they were offering, to put the pipes out there. And one of our big concerns was, do we have enough water? And that was just one data center. Now we're talking about 9. Of course, we could probably exclude Mattamead because they're buying from Spotsylvania. But I mean, the water table, you can't deny the water table's going down. And, I think we're putting some good things in place. I would just like to somehow, define what is adequate water, because they could come back and say, well, you all told me, by rights, I can put this here. And I think there's enough water. I mean, is that but you all are saying there's not enough water. And so then they're going to take us to court.
No, that's what Chris just explained, that process would be ironed out before we got to that point. So when they showed up and asked if there's adequate water, they would be told from the beginning whether there's adequate water or not.
Who's going to tell them? Planning office?
No, the utilities department is going to tell them.
Utilities department.
Yeah, I'm not going to tell them.
But but remember the one out on Jericho Road, the utilities department seemed to think there was enough, but the board and the commission didn't think there was enough, and the public didn't think there was enough.
I don't know about that. From what I remember with the Jericho Road project, it appears to be that they were using an antiquated system. That was one, and they weren't interested in utilizing water, air-cooled. And we were told that they were using gray water, which was not quite the truth until it was brought out here one night and they said, oh, no, we're not using gray water now. So I felt like we made the right decision with that, but I felt like we were misled.
And that could happen again, see, with future projects.
I think we're better prepared to handle that or more knowledgeable based upon what Mr. Hughes is just saying just now, that that would be I guess, from the water department or utilities department, there will be a special, form or formula to determine what they needed and if we could supply that.
They modeled.
Yeah, I would just like to that,
Perfect.
and that's kind of where I'm going with it. I would like to have more guarantees that we do have enough water. 7 more data centers in addition to what isn't there more than possibility more than 7 more because of there's some other acreage out there that could probably, I just don't know what's going to determine enough water.
Well, like I said, those that are currently in process are using recycled water. So, as for lack of a better word.
Yeah, but I asked the question of how do you say it? Avio.
Mm-hmm.
And they said they did have to change out their water complete system once a year.
Mm-hmm.
And so all of these places are going to have to do that.
Yeah,
and then what's the backup if the air cool doesn't work? So I just like to have more questions answered because we had a lot of concern from the citizens, and I'm getting it from my constituents. And they're saying, shouldn't the water go to the citizens first?
Well, Ms. Horton, let me tell you, I don't think, and I don't think that the board or the utilities department is going to put the citizens' use of potable water at risk. And so that is the exact reason why the county is looking for an alternative to groundwater and going to the Rappahannock. And like I said, it's very easy to kind of wrap this issue around water and data centers when the water issue was an issue prior to data centers. So
Yeah, it was.
and that is why.
And if we had a water issue before data centers,
right,
we're going to have a water issue after, and it could get worse.
if we allow them to use, reuse water and have to run water, but when they use the closed loop systems, there's a lot less water usage involved. And Joy, and I don't want to quote a number, but Joy can give you the exact what it equates to, the amount of water usage that a data center uses as it equates to single family residential homes. And you'd be surprised, it's not a lot of water.
It's not.
So,
It's not. And then some of the commercial development that we already have approved is going to require water, and that would be probably more water than a data center would require. If I'm correct.
Possibly some of them, but not all.
potentially, not all, but potentially.
Yeah, but I'm not saying everything, but I'm just saying data centers are not. We got to get the stigma out of people's mind. Data centers are not the problem for the water. Okay, well, I don't agree with it's a problem. I mean, it's going to provide us the economic impact that we need to be able to get us out of some of the jams that we're in, I would think.
Yeah, and I don't think we're totally against them, and we want a certain amount, but we need maybe some restrictions to keep it from mushrooming.
But I think we got those restrictions because based upon the map that we have, that's about all the data centers you're going to have here in the county.
How many more potentially could we have besides these 9?
Well, if you look at this map, these are the parcels that are 75 acres or greater that could accommodate data centers. Now, the question of how many could we have? I'll give you an example. The Avio site is essentially 97 acres being developed that have 5 buildings on that site. The site that was at TRC in the MCD area had 13 buildings on it. That was, how many acres was that? It was about 360 acres with 13 buildings. So there will be more buildings for sure. So 9 in the pipeline, but that doesn't mean 9 individual buildings. I want that to be clear as well. So like I said, the Avio site was 5 buildings. The project that we had at TRC we looked at was 13 buildings. The AWS site could be as many as 15 buildings. So it's not 9 sites, 9 buildings. It's 9 sites with multiple buildings typically. And there again, that is the scale of the projects that the county wants in terms of revenue production and the ability to be in the county with limited impact.
So I'm gonna use the excuse as a new guy on the block. So a 1,000 acre partial, how many data centers would we allow to be put on 1,000 acre partial? How many buildings could that possibly be?
Well, the Mattamead site initially, which is about 1,000 acres, initially they thought they could get about 25, but that's been reduced because of environmental constraints.
Okay. On the power and water. So based on what I understand, most data centers, the power companies, that power is not available to run those data centers currently. Is that a true statement?
Not necessarily.
No.
No.
Okay.
So you see those. those dashed lines on that map represent, oh, my pointer's not working. The dashed yellow and red lines on the map represent power lines. So, you know, Dominion is obligated to supply power once they get it. I mean, that is the reason why Dominion is going through the process now of upgrading their infrastructure to be able to supply power.
But that power isn't available now. I mean, that's power running.
No,
across the-
Dominion, the Avio site can run on the available power right now. The Matamede site can run on the available power right now. So,
And one last, so when we looked at designating the PERT areas in Carmel Church and up near Thornsburg, was that the idea the county wanted for us to landscape? So when they chose Carmel Church and Thornsburg, were they expecting to have campuses throughout? You know, was that their initial plan also? Were they more interested in just having them in those two locations, Carmel Church and near Thornsburg?
Yeah.
So is that what the county really wanted? So why did they do the PERT in those two areas, and now they want to do, the other areas weren't identified as PERT
It's a very good question.
originally. So why has that changed?
Well, it hasn't changed. So if you recall, I said that, part of the reason that the data centers were initially put into the industrial classification as a by right use was because those areas that are identified in the purple are areas that are large enough. One, they meet the acreage size that you could develop a campus style facility. They are in areas that are not adjacent to a lot of residential development. They are adjacent to the interstate. And so if you look at the design standards that are part of the PERT, then you could have data centers on those parcels and be in conformance with the PERT and not have less of an impact on the community. So the county recognized that these parcels were available at the same time that they were identifying the two areas that they felt like were most appropriate. And so it wasn't that, it's not that we're now coming back and saying we want these additional areas. These areas were identified in the very beginning as being appropriate. That's why it was made a by right use, because the county knew that these parcels were out here. And that they met the criteria that they could be developed with that use and have limited impact in conjunction with the ordinance standards that were put in place.
So Leon, regardless of what we decide to do or not do, the 9 projects that are in process, it's not going to have any impact on them at all, right?
That's not true. If you said that, if you went with the very simple option of saying, nope, just move it to the special use category and take it out, though some of those projects would have to go through the special use process.
How many of them? I mean, I thought they were all at least 75.
Well, okay. The question I answered was, I didn't answer the 75 acre question.
Okay.
I answered the question if you just took the simple route. So if you went to 75 acre route, then they wouldn't have to go, those 9 would not have to go through the process.
So that would be the simplest route to take, would be for these 9 projects.
Yeah, and if you recall at the board, at the joint meeting, there was some discussion about the equity in the process. Those 9 that are at some stage in the process are in the process and were under the impression they had a by right use and were acting with that thought process. So I think it was Miss geez, we're on a blank.
Long?
Miss Long.
Miss Long?
Thank you. Miss Long raised the equity issue of, I think she used the term pulling the carpet from under these people because they were in the process thinking they had a by right use, and all of a sudden the county's going to turn around and change the game. So
Midstream.
yeah.
But there was a possibility those could be grandfathered.
They could, they could do that. I mean, there are a number of, when you start talking about grandfathering and doing that, there are a number of ways that can be done. I mean, so the board has a myriad of options in terms of how the criterion they set for grandfathering.
See, my only concern, and I may be repeating myself, is just this could explode. You know, we could get a lot of applications, and we could get more than, we have water for. And also, once you get a lot of industry, we could have more developers coming in and saying, well, you've got plenty of money now. You've got all this tax revenue coming in. You can build new schools. We want to do this. We want to do that. I mean, it could just easily get out of hand. The 9 that are here, I mean, that may be reasonable, especially if they're air cooled, but I can see it very quickly going beyond that.
Well, sorry, let me just say, right now, these are the only parcels that qualify. So in terms of getting out of hand, you see on that map what's available. So, and I think that's the misnomer that's out there. If it's M1, it's eligible for a data center, and that's not the case. So when you say it could get out of hand, I think that you have to quantify what you mean by getting out of hand.
There's nothing else where they could put together several acres and make a 75 in a current M1.
That would be adjacent to utilities and have the utilities available. We don't think so. Now, we were having that discussion earlier today, and we have not done that exact down to the point investigation. So I don't want to stand here and tell you with an absolute no, but based on the 75 acre that we know that are available right now and have utilities available, those are the parcels you see on the map.
So what about if we are within the next 10 years able to bring the water up, through Bowling Green and up, 207? What is it coming up? 301 and then there are some other parcels that could be put together and qualify.
But they would have to go through a rezoning process.
Exactly.
So if you recall, let me go back to the map. So these are all the industrial zone properties in the county right now. So just because, and I think, 10 years from now, like you said, if the county runs water from the Rappahannock down 207, then the county's going to have to make a policy decision as to how they treat and allow, in terms of data centers. That will be a question that will probably have to be answered. But as of right now, in terms of a proliferation of data centers based on industrial zone property, there won't be a proliferation because they don't meet the criterion as it is in the code today to be a data center. Regardless of whether it's air cooled or want to use water, they don't meet the criteria. So like I said, just because
there's no other place that could apply for it right now. Nothing else is zoned for it right now.
Oh, these are your M1 zone properties that you see on the map.
We've got 9, and that's it for now.
No. The 9 are the properties that are at some stage in the process, just for clarification.
Okay, and how many more could be a possibility right now at this point?
Right here.
But some of those look like they're already on the 9.
Yeah, so this piece,
that's here.
is very early, and
oh wait, that's on
it's
here.
there. It's on the 9, and then the piece
there.
down in off of Ruther Glen Road. So see, you have the Project North is there. That's one of the 9
The
there.
nine is in red, I think, and then
Yes,
the
they're-
purple, so there's possibility of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 more. Is that what it looks like? So that's 15. $15 data centers,
Data center sites.
data center sites.
Projects. Mr. Hughes.
Mhm.
What determines proximity? Utility proximity. How is that determined?
Being relatively close. I would say, I'll give you an example. The Jericho Road site was not in proximity to utilities.
It's subjective. It's what,
It's kind of
it's a difference to you and difference to me. So utility availability, same thing. What's available, in my opinion, is not available in Dr. Horton's opinion. So I'm just, because these words are used, and I think it's misleading, and that's not your fault. That's verbiage, the English language. I understand that.
It is. And the only thing I would say to that is the term available is not subjective because that's a calculation. So the utilities department is going to calculate whether or not water is available.
Okay.
So it's not so subjective. That's not.
Commissioners, there are several things that stick out in my mind. I've been pretty silent, but I do recall Mr. Underwood making the statement, where are you going? What are you trying to accomplish? What's your purpose? And right now, we do not have a text amendment that is solid. Mr. Black commented that we did not want Caroline County becoming data center central. And he's absolutely right. And I'm going to tell you right now, if we don't get a grip on this bear, we're not going to be able to handle it. There are several things that I think are of utmost importance in drafting a text amendment for this ordinance. Number one, 75 plus acreage, period. Number two, removing all by right usage for data centers and moving them to special exception in compliance with the developmental standards. Of course, data centers are to be campus style, which they're already in the standards. But if we don't get a grip on this beast, it's going to overpower us. And that's my 2 cents worth. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree with you, Chairman. I just don't see the need or the difference. Well, I see the difference, but I just don't see the need in that we have to take that extra step with the special exception with all these other rules in place. You have the PERT in place, then you also have the 75 acres or more in place. Now, I do have a concern with adjacent properties attaching to what's existing. I would have a concern there. But again, why are we putting this extra step of special exception in place?
My goal is to remove any wiggle room. If it is very explicit and in print, there's no what ifs or wherefores or anything else. I just think that it should be extremely explicit what our intent and what our goals are.
No, I'm saying I agree with you from that perspective. I'm just asking for my clarification. Maybe I'm just, befuddled here, but I want to know what is the reason for the special exception step as opposed to what we just said, leave it as by right in an M1 district, but make it 75 acres or more? What are we losing and what are we gaining?
And what are we losing by removing it from by right and putting it into a special exception?
That's just an extra step or extra process, which is just adding resources to the county and adding time, additional time to the process.
Right.
Which I'm saying is that necessary?
Well, and I would think so for this reason. Data centers are a unique industry. When you put them into a list of by rights, it's just a unique, to me, separate type of industry when you're getting into the technology end.
Mm-hmm.
And you could be absolutely correct. I wouldn't disagree with you. But to confirm it, put it down explicitly, and make it without a doubt, no wiggle room.
Okay.
And that's where I'm coming from.
But I mean, even with what we're talking about now with a by right, as well as the 75 acres or more, it's going to be finite at one point. So it's not like it's going to get out of hand. There are no additional properties that are M1 that we have or we have coming. They would have to be rezoned and they would have to come
and they
before
might
us.
be in the future.
Well, they would have to come before
Yeah.
us in order to be rezoned, and we have an opportunity to turn it down. I'm just saying with what we have right now, with the M1s that we have right now, I'm still not understanding why we need to put an extra step in place when the steps are already in place.
Let me seek some advice on that, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Mr. McKenzie. Which would be the easiest route to go to accomplish the same purpose?
Good question.
Well, I think what I would come back to is, kind of framing what we're trying to accomplish here, which is, you guys deferred at the last meeting. The board spoke, but obviously didn't take any action because you guys deferred. And what I recall was wanting to analyze the issue a little bit more and get a little more specificity in the different types of projects. And so the reason staff is, and again, at this point, all we need is direction from what you want to do next. This is just the discussion stage. But the reason the staff recommendation is for the 75 acre being the dividing point, is that it seems to address all the concerns that staff heard at the last meeting. To Mr. Young's point, most of those projects, if not all of them that are in place, we don't have to deal with grandfathering and vested rights, or making, having those projects that are in process go back and go through special exceptions. But to your point, Mr. Schwartz, requiring special exceptions for any parcels under 75 acres, which is a very small universe of existing M1 parcels, would put us in a position where most, again, I'm using broad terms, but most new projects would be within control, because either they're going to be on a smaller parcel and require a special exception, or they're going to be on a bigger parcel that's not yet M1 and needs a rezoning, at which point you again can exercise that control and say, look, if you're going to rezone to M1, and you're over 75 acres, and I think Mr. Hughes touched on this earlier, the planning commission and the board can be very direct and say, you're over 75 acres and you're in the M1 district. That means data centers are going to be by right. Is that something that you're going to do on your property? And that applicant will say, yes, it is, or no, it's not, or in all likelihood, well, I don't know what I want to do quite yet. In which case you can say, well, if you don't proffer it out, which is your choice, we're going to assume it's going to be a data center, and we're going to express our concerns and look for proffers as if it is a data center. So you're going to be able to exercise control that way. And again, I'm not advocating one way or the other, but I'm just kind of trying to explain why the staff, why our first kind of recommendation to you, which we're happy to go back and keep working on, is that 75 acre. It seems to be a pretty uncomplicated change, not making the text amendment too much more, it's still pretty simple, but it addresses what we heard to be a lot of the concerns expressed at the last meeting.
Thank you, because that was one thing that I was trying to avoid, was all of a sudden a 40-acre site popping up that is within proximity to utilities and say, I want a data center.
That would be, under the recommendation, that'd be a special exception. And say, you're not big enough. We think that's going to potentially have impact. You're not going to be able to meet all those kind of planning guidelines that Mr. Hughes highlighted for you. So that means you're going to have to come and ask for a special exception. Or, if you had a huge parcel, but there's not enough M1 there and they've got to rezone it, that comes to you through the rezoning process as opposed to the special exception process.
So Mr. Young's version would fulfill that necessity, or
most of it. I mean, again, nothing's kind of perfect. And I certainly hear, I think there was a lot of compelling discussion from a lot of different sides at the last meeting, and I totally understood. I think everyone there are a lot of good points made. And there is a appealing simplicity, just saying, let's just flip it all to special exception. But when we drilled down into that at the last meeting, you guys kind of saw some of the knock-on effects that we were going to have to look at through grandfathering invested rights and existing projects, and how do we deal with those, or do we deal with them? And again, what we understood the charge to be, to say, look, this approach of just flipping it to special exception, seems to not have the precision that the county is looking for in its zoning ordinance, and it happened pretty fast. So go back to the Planning Commission, keep exploring, and give us something that's a little more precise, a little more well thought out, that addresses the concern about proliferation, about control, while not having any negative real knock-on effects with projects that are in process or that the county has courted to come to the county. At least that's what I heard. And so we think that this first proposal, is a good effort in that direction. And again, you could continue to vet it. All we need to know is whether you agree. Is this addressing your concerns, or do you want us to go back to the drawing board? Because I think, as the report pointed out, we could look at an overlay district like we did with solar. We could try to address water types, reuse, or air cooled, or there are other options, but they all seem a little more complicated than this acreage approach. So that's why we started with that one.
So I had a note on, I meant to ask the question, because I was reading about the overlay district where some of the other counties were doing. So explain, I Googled it to try to understand it. So do we have overlay districts in the county now that apply to certain things, and how would that apply to a data center?
We had some. The most recent example, Mr. Hughes will probably know better, but the most recent example I remember is solar. And what we did with solar was it's a zoning technique where we say, in the context of solar, we said, we know these solar facilities need to be pretty close, or we want them to be pretty close to existing 230 kV power lines. So we drew a map with a certain mileage from all those lines in the county, and we said solar can only be within that map. So as opposed to, it gives you a different way, instead of saying solar has to be in the RP district or solar has to be in the industrial district, you're able to say, no, we made a new district, and it's an overlay of the existing districts, and it's based on where, we draw it based on the power lines, and solar has to be in that overlay district. So the same could be true of data centers. And frankly, the power line question is probably a similar one, because we discussed power concerns at the last meeting too. So you'd look at, I think, that would be a good mental jumping off point, would be a data center overlay that looks a lot like the solar overlay we did, and and then you could kind of, address the use within that overlay district. But when we analyzed that, it didn't seem, it still seemed to say, well, then you could still have some small M1 parcels within that overlay district. And if it's by right in that overlay district, we could end up with by right on smaller M1 parcels. And that isn't what we heard as being wanted. So we chose to recommend, again, as a starting point, the 75 acres to start, because it seemed, again, to be a little cleaner than the overlay. But that is a different approach. And when I say recommend, again, it's just, we didn't want to just throw a bunch at you and, kind of leave you adrift. We thought, let's pick one that from our analysis seems to be the best candidate as the first discussion point. And that's where we ended with 75 acres.
And I think we appreciate, all the hard work that you all have done on this. But we have come back several times to what do we want to accomplish? And what we want to accomplish is keeping Caroline a rule setting, but also being able to have the tax income. And data centers do provide a lot. But if we go with the 75 acres, that's 15 possibilities, 15 data centers, 15. Does that meet our goal? There's 9 already, in the pipeline, and then there's 5 more 75 acre spot. That's the point I'm trying to get across. Do we need 15 data centers? Does that keep Caroline the way the citizens want it? So,
Keep in mind, a data center can have anywhere from 5 to 25 buildings.
well, 15 campuses, yeah. And there's a lot of buildings on those campuses. But I'm just saying 15
But I don't think we don't have any parcels that large to have 25. Mattamead has 13, correct? But it has some environmental issues. Do we have any other parcels in the county that can accommodate 20 or 25 centers? Or 25 buildings, I said centers, but
So that depends. There are a couple factors there.
on the size?
Well,
Yeah.
let me retract that. I'd have to look. I don't think so.
Because the smaller the building is, the less megawatts it's going to require.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. So
25. I don't think on any of those parcels you could get 25.
I can't see 25 data centers on any of these parcels.
I picked a number.
Because
I'm just
it's
saying.
15
Yeah.
campuses where they could put several buildings
Yeah.
on
But,
there.
but my argument again is, yes, keep Caroline County rural. However, we have this growth district where, how are we going to grow this district if we're not putting commercial projects here? These are growth districts. This has nothing to do with Caroline County being rural or not rural. The rural is going to stay rural. We're not, that facility on that other map down in Sparta that has the M1, those other places, they don't comply. So we wouldn't have to be concerned or even let that be an issue. So just these areas that are in the growth district is what we need to be concerned about. Most of these line 95, I would rather see them down 95 with buffers than they would be out on Route 1.
Well, they will expand eventually.
But I'm saying, how are they going to expand if we don't allow them to expand? Because then that comes as a special exception and or rezoning, correct?
Yeah, I mean, we rezoned these in the first place.
Yes,
I mean,
but
at one time they were farms.
Yeah.
They will expand. And do we have the water too? Is another one of my.
Yeah, but we don't have the other parcels in here that are 75 acres or more.
Not yet.
Unless they attach
Yeah,
to additional.
they may attach.
Yeah, you would have, but then we have an opportunity at that point to, I don't want to say deny, but we have an opportunity to take a look at that and consider if we want that rezoning to take place.
Yeah, just like we had the opportunity now to consider.
Correct. But there are no large parcels left that would comply to what we would need for a data center.
Not on this strip, but going down Jericho Road,
Yeah,
other
but
areas.
Jericho Road is, you don't have utilities there. We must have utilities and we must have 75 acres or more.
But it will expand to that.
But we have an opportunity at that point to
Yeah, I can
be
see
brought
you think
before us to say
15
yes or no.
campus, you think 15 campuses is okay. I understand.
No, and I'm not saying that I'm not hung up on a number of how many. I am concerned, and I think we have protocols in place with the utilities department as well as the PERT districts and everything else that the protocols and the hard work that the staff has done to research this stuff. I think these protocols are in place so that we can make a better educated decision if these centers should come or should not come. We have that decision. We have that autonomy. And taken away from us, then the board of supervisors will have the final say if the county can facilitate it or not. You follow what I'm saying?
Yeah, but I'm looking to the future, and you're saying what's here now.
Mhm.
What's here now is 15 data centers. Campuses.
Yes.
I don't think the citizens want that, and I don't think there's adequate utilities for that.
Yeah. I'm not, and I don't necessarily agree with that. I go back to where I said this many months ago, the NIMBY approach, not in my backyard. We don't want it here, but it's okay to be over there. We need the resources here in the county, and whether we want data centers or not, they're coming. This item right here, you're not looking at CDs and VHS tapes anymore to get your information. Your information right here, and you're gonna need data centers to operate this.
Yeah, I know that. But I'm saying, do we need
cars
15?
and everything else?
Do we
They
need
have to go
15? Do we need 15? That's my point.
strategically placed in the county. I can see where they need to be. I can't say we need 5 or 10 or 15, but I think the county has protocols in place to say how many we could adequately supply or work with.
And tonight, what we're saying is 15 by rights.
With these here, I think the county has already agreed through utilities and anything else that we can accommodate what's been approved. Oh, and not necessarily approved, but what's in the process, what's in the pipeline. Is that correct? So we can accommodate those. Anything else, just because it's a by right, does not mean that it's going to be approved.
But most likely, if it's a by right, most likely.
They don't fit the criteria of the things that we need for the county, it just won't be approved. They can't get a CO on it.
Well, let me ask you this. If a group of properties join together and they're zoned M1 and they meet the minimum acreage requirement, they do not have the utilities, i.e. electrical power, running anywhere near that property. If they seek through Dominion Power electricity, then isn't Dominion Power obligated to provide electricity to them?
That'd take an act of Congress somewhat, wouldn't it? Because then you have to, go ahead.
So Dominion is obligated to run the power. However, Dominion is obligated to say we can provide the power, but there's a process that they have to go to, let's say, to run those utility lines. So just like the upgrading of the infrastructure that they're going through now, the SCC has to approve the extension of those lines.
Act of Congress.
So like the Avio site is a good example to what you're speaking of. Dominion and REC say, yeah, we can supply you the power. However, the route to get that power to you has to go through SCC approval. So,
But it's still possible.
it is possible, certainly.
Yeah.
Certainly.
If it's by special exemption and the special exemption is denied by the Planning Commission and the board, then suit is filed and, I have gone back and read the original text that was put out that we were trying to act upon, and my head is spinning. But be that as it may,
I could see.
I voiced what my concerns are. I want to, and to me, either through special exception, meeting the standards, that settles better with me than by right. But if by right with the conditions, the standards being met, it seems to me that the same goal is accomplished. We talk about the revenue that these data centers will generate. We've heard figures like 6.5 million annually for a data center. Now, is that for the 10 buildings that they have on the property? And remember, that's going to be at build out 12 to 15 years down the road. That's not going to be an overnight thing. So I'm not going to be blinded by the dollar figure. But for our citizens and for our county, we've got to have some control and keep them within a certain area instead of letting them go out all over the county.
Yeah.
And we can do that with those standards. So it's just, to me, it boils down by right or special exception.
Yeah. I think we go back and forth, and maybe legal could answer this for us. With special exception, wouldn't we be susceptible more to possible lawsuits than we would by right?
Well, yeah, yes. I mean, but I think because you would be extra, that's the catch-22 of having a decision to make.
Correct.
Is that once you have that control, some people are going to like the decision and some people aren't. And the people that don't may sue. Now, I think that it exists as a threat, but that exists as a threat, in everything we do, because it's very rare that one of y'all's decisions can make everybody happy. And so we try not to let it steer our decision making, or at least the staff work, because, what we're going to do is ensure that you comply with the law, and everything you've done complies with the law. But yes, to answer your question, whenever there's a board decision, ultimately it could generate litigation. And I did, not to be an unsequitur, but just to read for you, because we talked about we were talking, I think Mr. Schwartz was talking about utilities, and those have come up, and I just read, and it was kind of a helpful refresher to me, the PERT standard in the purpose and intent language. Remember, the PERT standards apply right now to any M1 and would continue to apply. And I just thought, since we've been talking about it, I'll read, this is the language from the PERT standards about the availability of utilities. It says, adequate public utilities, water, sewer, and electric, must be available to the property, or provisions made by the developer to extend utilities to the site in a manner and time frame acceptable to the Board of Supervisors. Property shall be located in proximity to public utilities to minimize unintended growth consequences of utility extensions. Properties should be served by a road network of adequate capacity to serve the proposed uses. So I just thought I'd read that, Mr. Schwartz, because it seems to kind of touch on your questions about extending dominion and stuff. And so that's what our PERT standard says right now.
In thinking about it a little bit further, I think I'm going to acquiesce and go with Mr. Young's recommendation.
I just want to say one thing before, because I'm not against data center either, but majority of my people across in my local area, they are, most of them that you hear come, which is not a lot of them that come to the meetings, but they're the ones that voice the most concern. And like Brother Young said, that was, in your backyard. But, I think there are some people in a lot of our constituents, they want that check and balance. And I'm not, and in some points, they want somebody to hold accountable for what decisions are made. So, they could, if we go special exception, they're going to say, okay, it went to the planning commission and it went to the Board of Supervisors. And so two different functions, areas looked at that request, and at some point a decision was made after two people reviewed it. So I think a lot of the constituents out there want that. That's what they want. They want that check and the balance and be able to hold somebody accountable for it. And I think that's where they're pushing the special exception. And I'm not saying I understand them in one point. There's a lot of misconceptions about data centers. A lot of people don't understand, what they do, what they look like. Most people haven't seen one. But I think that's where the biggest problem is that it's, and I agree with my lady friend here that, we need to also consider the constituents, and, they are concerned about the landscape of the county, and it's changing drastically. And I think they expect for the people of the county, the leadership of the county to make the right decisions for their best interests. So I just wanted to say that.
Again, lastly, for the record, I think we still have not definitively said the benefit of a special exception. If we had a T-chart to tell us the pros and cons of each side, by right, special exception, that could give us better understanding as to what we're dealing with. For the life of me, I just can't see why we're adding an extra layer when we already have control of where data centers will go and how they will be seen and not seen and how they will operate and not operate. We have that control. And we're now asking to add an extra step there, which I asked council, would that open us up for liability? Which it could, because now you're losing somewhat control when you approve this one and deny that one, because we don't have anything to base it upon other than I don't want it over here. These M1 districts, 75 acres or more, plus the PERT, puts us in the driver's seat.
But we're going to have 15, or we could open up to a lawsuit.
But you're hung up on a number. It seems like that you're saying we got to have the number.
There's 15 that might qualify.
But eventually they are going to stop because we're going to run out of space for data centers. We're going to be done. There are no other places for data centers.
Well,
if they come before us for 40 acres, 50 acres, then we have a chance to say no, because you don't meet the criteria for what we need in this M1 district.
We may be expanding M1. That's the other point.
Maybe expanding, but
didn't we expand? Didn't the board expand a little bit?
So the expansion you're speaking of, Ms. Horton, is the expansion of the PERT area. That does not, that's a land use designation in the comprehensive plan that says that area is suitable for these types of uses. That does not change the zoning of those properties. The majority of those properties within that area are still zoned RP. So if someone came along and wanted to do a data center, although they have the land use designation of PERT, they don't have the zoning classification that would allow that designation or that use. Yeah. So they would still have to go through the process.
I'm just thinking when that water comes down to 07, I mean, you're opening up to more data centers.
We're opening up to everything.
And I think, special exemptions are fine. We have them almost every meeting. We had 2 tonight.
When that water comes through, we're opening up to commercial.
And
we're opening up to major development. But data centers will not be in position or in compliance with those lines coming down 207, 95, anywhere else, if they are not in this district.
But the district could be expanded. That's what I'm just trying to tell you.
I agree with you, but we have control of that if they are expanded, because we get to say yes or no on or rezoning process. And the public get to say yes or no on a rezoning process.
Well, the public said no on this.
What do you mean? By right, if we went to the special exception, then we would have to take it back to the public.
No, I think the special exception's already, that one is already there, right?
No, ma'am.
What is the one that we had at our joint meeting?
That was the option of just moving it from by right to special exception.
Yeah, see,
Yeah, but why are we taking it to special exception if everything is covered in by right with the text that we're saying 75 acres or more and with the perch standards?
because reduce it from 15. I mean, because there's 15 that is a possibility of by rights, 15 campuses right now. 9 are in the pipeline. And then if you count, there is 6 more that would be eligible. Okay.
But they can still be approved.
Yeah.
They can still be approved, whether it's by right or special exception. It's just adding another layer.
Another layer. Yeah.
All we're doing is kicking the can till the next meeting and saying, okay,
Well, if you do 75 acres, we're kicking it to the next, because that's got to be re-advertised, right? We don't have a 75 acre clause right now.
Well, and to be clear, I mean, we didn't advertise anything for this meeting. So this was just for this discussion and to find out whether you're ready for us to put something forward for the next meeting. And you can continue. There's no set timeline. I mean, I think I got the impression from the last meeting that, everyone wanted some resolution on this as soon as possible. But I also heard loud and clear from a number of you that you want this to go through your normal process and not an expedited one. So, all we need to figure out tonight is there a different text amendment that you would like us to advertise for a public hearing, so that you can move to that next stage? Because right now you're kind of in the first reading discussions.
See, the special exception public hearing's already been done. We had that.
Right, and it's still live. You deferred it. So, but the reason we'd be discussing another public hearing is if you deviate enough from the existing language, we have to do another public hearing. I think we can still, even in this context, we can still kind of stay in the same, application number and in the same initiating, event, which is we want to look at how we controlling data centers, right? That's what you did at your last independent meeting. But now all we're saying, and this is just a legal technicality, is if it's enough of a difference that we don't feel like the first public hearing adequately covers it, we want to do another public hearing.
So if we do the 75 acres, we do have to have another public hearing?
Yes, ma'am. We think that's enough.
So if we do the 75 acres, we have to have another. So we're kicking the can. Yeah. And I'm fine with the 75 acres, but I would like to have more control over this.
I agree with you. We do have control. So with that being said, I like to resolve this and stop going around in circles. So Mr. McKenzie, Mr. Hughes, please tell me point blank, what is the benefit of a special exception for this county?
So, I mean, I think a special exception does give you more control over a use, but it requires property owners to go through another step and potentially not get what they want. And so, and this is, I'm going to go kind of back to basics in the zoning, Mr. Young. And the idea is, when we look at regulating uses on property, we start at the first level of we're gonna divide them into districts. And we say, okay, this is where we want these various types of uses. And we're talking about the M1 district right now. In the M1 district, we say, okay, we want manufacturing, industrial uses in the M1 district. And within that kind of broad category, we have some that we think are, typical enough for that type of use that we're going to allow them by right. If you're zoned M1, you can do it without going through any more steps. And there's others in the M1 district that are more intensive or more noxious, like, I don't know if you guys remember, but I'm sure Dr. Horton does, sand and gravel mining. That's one, it's not necessarily M1, but that's an intensive use where we say you have to come through a special exception process because of all the effects. And so what we're deciding tonight is, if you want data centers to go from by right, something that we expect to see in the M1 district, and you saw in that table that staff prepared, most of our kind of surrounding comparator counties have data centers as by right in their industrial districts. But what we're deciding tonight is, do we want to take data centers from a by right use and say, we think it's intensive enough, utility hungry enough to require that extra step and that extra discretion and be able to decide on a case by case basis, do we want to allow them? That's the first question. But then, and I know this is a long answer, but then I think what the board said was, we're interested in that. We do think we need to move to some more special exception. But what I heard from the last meeting, I guess from both bodies, was, but we don't think just, we want to hear other options. So how can we be more precise with how we require special exceptions? Because to your point, Mr. Young, it's another layer, it's another complication. And these, I think, data centers are generally the type of thing you'd expect to see in an M1 district. And so the 75-acre option that was offered tonight basically bifurcates data centers into two subcategories, big campus style ones and smaller ones. And then you can say, well, we want special exceptions for the smaller ones because we have more concerns about those. There's a higher population of potential sites, and we're comfortable by right with the bigger ones because they square with what we said in the PERT guiding language. They should have less of an impact. And again, that's you saying things that have lesser impact. I'm not saying any industrial use is low impact. It's their industrial uses. They're going to have an high impact, but that's why they're in the M1 district. But so that's the. I hope that kind of answers the question to say special exceptions exist to give you more control, but at the cost of another layer of analysis, regulation, time, money, all those things. That's the trade-off with a special exception.
Thank you.
And again, procedurally tonight, all we need to know is, what do y'all want to do next?
I would make a recommendation that we keep it as a by right. Add the language for the 75 acres and more. Send it to the board, let the board make a decision. And if they don't like it, send it back.
I would second that.
Well, that was a recommendation, but I'll make it a motion.
I would.
I don't know. I still like the extra layer of control. So it's an extra step. By golly, we get paid the same per month for however many steps we take. Now, it may put more work on legal and the planning department, and I apologize for that. But we just cannot let this bear get out of control. And even with the standards in place, the more control, the better. I guess is going to be my philosophy on this.
So
I think we got a motion on the floor.
No, we don't.
I didn't hear. I'm sorry.
I made the motion.
Oh, you made the motion?
And Mr. Williams seconded.
And can I just
Yes, sir.
clarify? I mean, again, I think
This is not for a motion, I don't think.
yeah. Well, I just want to. So the motion what we would need would be to advertise. We can't send anything to the board yet because we need you to make a recommendation on amended text for either the recommendation or approval or denial, just like you did with the other applications. So at this point, we just need to know: do you feel like that you want to go down the 75-acre route? You guys want to do a public? Because what we don't want you to have to do is lots and lots of public hearings, false starts for the public to say, I thought we were looking at this and thought we want to discuss, coalesce on this is the approach we want to take, or at least evaluate. And then you can either recommend approval or denial, and then it goes up to the board. But we didn't want to have to do bring the public out for public hearing after public hearing on various options. So the question is, I think for the vice chair is, are you moving to say, all right, advertise what the option the staff offered in the staff report, 75 acres, and then you have the public hearing, and you could say, you can tweak it at that public hearing. You Mr. Schwartz, could say, I think they should all be, you can divide them up, but I think they should all be special exception. Or you guys can make your recommendation at that point, but right now you don't even have anything to act on. We just need to know what to advertise.
I gotta say, one of the along the lines of what Chris was saying, Ms. Horton raised some ideas. There may be ways to further make this a little bit more specific, considering the concerns that Ms. Horton raised. So, like Chris said, there could be additional text added. There could be additional text added to this proposal as well. So,
how would we propose to go about that? Is that something the staff would?
We would go away. We would massage what we presented to you tonight, add some additional options or language to that, and bring it back and let you see if that's what you find acceptable.
And then we would make it a public hearing.
And then you could say, go make it a public.
Or advertise.
To Chris's point, then that prevents us from starting and stopping, and it gives you an opportunity to massage all of the options that may be out there and see if there's additional things you want to do.
I wholeheartedly agree with that, because that makes it more clear, much clearer, much cleaner.
So could there be a verbiage in the writing that says, so let's say if we were going to say, okay, any request in M1 after a certain period of time would go to special exception, even if it was 75 acres, could you do that? Could you say after any applications after a certain date would be done on the special exception for M1? Could you do
I don't know. I think not, because then you'd be kind of preemptively rezoning, because you'd be saying, you can have a delayed implementation, right? So you could say, we don't want this zoning change to go into effect. So like, to your point, you could say, I think the way that we would address what you're talking about would say, we want them all to be special exception, but we're going to have that ordinance isn't going to go into effect until January 2026 or whatever. That's probably how you would achieve that. Now there are lots of other ways, and that's kind of the inflection point we're at now, is that do you want to keep exploring other options and take more time, or do you want to move this along faster? Because to control the amount of data centers, staff and I have talked about, in the solar world, when we went through this, a lot of kind of similar exercise with solar, we had a megawatt cap. We said, once we hit, I can't remember what the number was, but once we hit a certain number of megawatts, we're done. And we could certainly look to see, is there an analog that we could come up with in the data center context? But there's not an easy one like megawatts for data centers. We'd have to look at like enclosed square footage or something, and we'd have to vet that. And again, all those other options I think are out there and viable, and I'm sure there's plenty more that we haven't thought of, but they're all more complicated. And so we were just starting with the cleanest solution that we could think of to give you an option, another fork in the road to say, yeah, that works good enough. Let's move this thing up. Or no, we want to keep exploring and looking at other options about caps or water or whatever. And staff is, as I understand it, happy to do either. And we just need direction tonight from which way you want us to go.
We have enough forks in the road as it is.
So my last, so if Commissioner Young's motion goes through and it passes, you're saying that we would go to the public hearing with the 75 and leave it at by right, if that's what happened tonight.
That's what I was actually just asking to clarify the motion
Okay.
to make sure that we got it clear for the record.
But that's what would happen. We would go to a public hearing before it goes to the board, right?
Right. So we would advertise an amended ordinance. Take what we've got, and as you saw, it just deleted data centers from by right and added them to special exception. That new ordinance would look very similar, but basically we'd first be working on the definition section, and we have one definition from data centers. Now we'd have two: data centers over 75 acres and data centers under 75 acres. And we'd, staff would work on that language.
Well, I think we want to keep the 75 acres, most of us.
Yeah. And again, this is just what it would look like. And another option is to say, go write this up and show it to me and bring it back to me the next meeting.
I was going to say, I'd like to rescind my previous motion.
Yeah.
And make a clearer motion that we defer this and allow staff to give us a better, clear text.
Sure.
So that we can make a better decision.
And so we could basically do a first reading of what we've discussed tonight about the acreage thing at your next meeting.
Yes.
But a little more control than just 75 acres. I mean, I know we got the PERT, but I don't know. I'm trying to look at what the other counties do, and I just, it, like Mr. Schwartz put it best, it could just get out of hand easily. It doesn't seem like we have enough control. We don't have as much control as the citizens want. Let's put it that way.
We do. I don't see why we don't.
Didn't you hear him at the last public hearing? I mean,
I think that's probably because they're not understanding
It's
it. in its
misinformation.
entirety. As far as a deferral or if we defer, that's going to put this going to the board in January.
Probably
The
February.
only thing that's unusual is, I'm trying to remember this, your November meeting is a week early because of Thanksgiving. But if you don't have anything to vote on at your November, so what I was thinking was, I think it is theoretically possible that if you did something at your November meeting, there's enough time because it's a week early to advertise for the board's December meeting. But it would go go to a first reading with the board in December. If you want us to bring you back text at your November meeting, that means December would be probably where you have your public hearing, and then the first reading of the board is January.
Well,
The motion was on the floor.
So what is the motion is to defer and come back with a first reading.
Yes.
all right, there's a motion for deferral. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Mr. Williams. No further discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it unanimously. Motion carries. This will be deferred until our next meeting. And if staff would, as soon as you have a draft, if you could get it to us instead of waiting to get it, a
In your
week
packet.
before our meeting in a packet. And I'm not being facetious or anything, but I think that would help us to ingest it, digest it, and regurgitate it. So we would appreciate that.
Is that something that you might be able to email? Or it has to be hand delivered?
No, we can. You all have email, so
Yes.
we'll disseminate it however you want to get it.
Yeah, as long as it's not 50 pages that I got to print out.
Wow,
Could be 49.
you told us to go be creative.
All right. Mr. McKenzie, Mr. Hughes, Mr. Pennington, Mr. Robinson. I want to thank all of you for hanging in there with us. We do appreciate it. I know it's been a long day.
Yes.
So with that, there being no further business, is there a motion to adjourn till our next meeting, November 21st, 2024 at 6:30 p.m.?
So move.
So moved by the vice chair. Is
I
there
will
a
second.
second? Seconded by everyone present. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Motion carries. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you, gentlemen.